Hey there, movie fans. This is Sequel Suck. Welcome to Sequel Suck, the podcast that loves to talk about sequels and remakes. Normally we say welcome back, but that's presumptuous. Maybe this is your first episode. Stanley always said everybody's comic is somebody's first comic. So maybe this is your first podcast with us. Maybe it's your first podcast ever. Welcome to podcasts. We've been here a minute, but it's great. It's like radio, but exactly what you want to hear and not some guy trying to give away tickets to a show you don't care about. It's the future. My name's Angus Brown, and this is Michelle Hingston. Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm great. It's the holidays. I'm very excited. It's Christmas time, man. How can you not be great at Christmas time? Despite the fact that today we've been relocated to the surface of the sun. It's
True.
so hot today.
And what friggin' day is it? Who knows what the hell is going on? Tuesday? Wednesday?
It's the middle. It's the middle bit.
Tuesday.
The middle bit. One of my favorite comedians, Doug Benson, calls it the taint week because it taint Christmas and it taint New Year's. It's just a bit in the middle. But it's a great week for catching up on movies. It's what I use it for every year. This is my let's plow through the list of stuff I didn't get to see before New Year's. I don't know. I've got a weird thing where if it came out in that year, I really want to try and see it.
You've got to see it.
And if I don't, there's stuff on my watch list from 2016 that went on my watch list in 2016. I didn't get to it, and it's just hung around. It's I'll see it one day, but now you go to the bottom of the list because of January 1st. I got to go start seeing new releases. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of insanity in my lack of logic.
You're going to be busy this week, 2016 to now. That's a lot of movies.
Yeah, I got a lot to catch up. Look, this week has been plowing through sequels I missed this year, which I'm disappointed to say there was a few, and a few biggies, not obscure little director streaming releases. And there's a lot of the smaller streamers released a lot of stuff this year to try and get in the market. Shudder busted out a bunch of sequels. Paramount Plus came along and started doing some original content. Acorn, God bless them. I don't know what they're doing over there, but they're doing something. There's a lot of the streaming market is insane now. So there was a lot of sequels that came out, but it wasn't necessarily the itty bitties that I missed this year. There's a couple of big boys I'll talk about later when I watch them, but I've seen them now. But talk about cutting it fine. It's been fun there. How's your Christmas? Did you have a good Christmas? Did your family do Christmas?
Well, my mum has been away, so it was just me and my dad home looking after ourselves.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a nice tidy little Christmas.
Yeah, didn't set the kitchen on fire or anything, so it's a win in my book.
That's a huge win for you. That's great. Did you watch movies? Are you a family that watches Christmas movies on Christmas, or just any movies on Christmas, or is it TV off? This is family time.
Oh, we usually do the carols, but we missed it this year.
For the first time ever, I went to the actual. I went to the rehearsal. I went to the rehearsal the day before. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. My wife is a huge fan of the carols. She introduced me to them. My family was always very much at Christmas time, you watch Christmas movies, and that's it. You don't fuck around with carols or going to shows or any of that nonsense.
No time for that.
And my lovely wife Jess is what are you talking about? It's Christmas time. Go to Christmas carols. Go see Christmas. And this year we went to see the opera do Christmas Carol and things like that. So she's raising our kids right. She's really educating them far more. She's come and watch actual singers sing songs. And I'm come watch Chevy Chase cut down a tree that's too big to fit in his house.
Yes. And put as many lights as possible.
They're getting both ends of the spectrum when it comes to
well-rounded kids,
which is fun. So we should probably explain what we're doing here today. Listeners will probably have picked up by now we're a man down. Cable isn't here today. He is busy renovating a house. So I feel sorry. I spent the last couple of days renovating a shower and that took it out of me, so I appreciate how hard a whole house is. But this episode is in my opinion, a little bit time sensitive, which is why we're pushing through on this one without Cable on board, because what we're doing today is we are going to put together the definitive Sequels Suck top 5 sequels of 2022. So this is going to be the podcast's official. We've agreed on it. This is what's going out. Now, we haven't discussed any of the films with each other yet.
Nope.
Cable has sent me his list of his personal top 5 of the year, plus his other sequels that he held in high regard throughout the year. Michelle has done her own top 5. I don't know that one. Michelle does not know mine, and we haven't discussed in the group chat or off mic what we're going to do about the top 5. So the way that we're going to decide it now is we're going to go through. We're going to fight it out.
Yeah.
We're going to get next to each other and just punch each other in the head until someone wins.
You're over there.
Yeah, that's it. Just a bit of that. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through, or I'm going to go through through every sequel that I can think of that has been released this year. Now, this I understand this is probably not going to be the definitive list. And if you are listening to this episode and I miss something, it's not by deliberate omission. It's because, a lot of movies came out this year, and I did my best to track them all down. But, it reaches a point where you hit kind of market saturation. You're like, I've lost track of what movies I've already put on the list. So I have tried my best to put it down. I think what we've got here as a list is a lot. It's a lot of the movie. If it's not every sequel, it's
a lot of
most, and it is a good representation of genre, of release, either theatrically or streamer, of big name to bargain basement.
Do you remember though when I asked you if even 10 movie sequels had come out this year?
I remember when you asked me that, and I remember my answer was, I think Disney Plus have released 10 sequels alone this year. And the landscape for sequels really blew right open this year. It's pretty crazy what's going on with sequels. Also, it's pretty crazy what's going on with sequels in how they're evolving, because with people like Disney Plus and other streamers, but Disney leading the way, sequels are becoming TV shows now. Like it used to be in the 90s and the aughties, if a movie was successful enough to get like a TV show, it was in name only. So for like something like the Lethal Weapon TV show, it was just like a show about two cops who didn't quite get along solving crimes. It wasn't Riggs and Murtaugh. It wasn't continuing on from where Lethal Weapon 4 left off. It was like, hey, let's just make a show and call it that name. But these days, if they make a show and call it that name, it probably continues directly from the movie. The closest, the most recent example I can think of is the Santa Clauses, which Disney Plus released for Christmas this year, which is a TV show that is a sequel to the Tim Allen Santa Claus movies. They've also, of course, been doing it pretty hardcore with their Marvel properties and the Star Wars properties. We're not getting Star Wars movies. We're getting, instead of a Boba Fett movie, we've got a Boba Fett TV show. So that's kind of an interesting direction, and it's something I think we're going to dig in more in part 2 of this episode. So what this episode is going to be is part 1 of what we're going to call our year in review. So this episode, Michelle and I are going to knock out the top 5. I wanted to get this done pre-New Year's because I'm sure there are other people out there like me who finally have some time to watch some movies, and you sit down and you fire up whatever streaming service you have and you go, oh my God, what do I watch? So this is just to try and let you know, A, what came out, but also what we think are the ones that are really worth your time. If you're only going to knock out 1 or 2 or 5 sequels, between now and when you go back to work, here's what we think are the ones. Then what we're going to come back with in the new year with Cable back after he's rebuilt his house is we're going to be doing our 2022 year in review / 2023 looking forward. So we're going to talk about all of the things that happened in sequels this year, the ways they involved, the ways that potentially they devolved, things we thought worked, things we thought didn't. Is this the end of the reboot sequel where they just ignore a bunch of movies and then dive in? Is this the beginning of a trend of all movies just being like, we didn't like number 4, so number 4 doesn't exist anymore, but number 5 was dope. Where are we headed? And also, what's coming up? What's coming up next year? What are we excited for? This year was a huge year for sequels. Just to give you a taste of some of the stuff we'll be talking about next episode, but also to set the scene, the worldwide box office this year, in the top 10 worldwide box office films, so the films that made the most amount of money in 2022, we had 7 sequels and 1 reboot, I guess you would call it.
Wow.
In the top 10 highest grossing films for the year in the entire world. So it's not just America or Australia that's crazy for sequels. If you're going to the movies in 2022, you're probably watching a sequel. Which is, it's just crazy to me. And we're looking at a year with the Oscars where we might get maybe like 4 films that are sequels in the best picture race.
That's
if
crazy.
not like actually nominated. A year ago that would have been insane.
Yeah.
To think that. And now it's like, not one sequel might be in the race. There might be multiple that are genuine contenders for not just Best Picture, but also like Best Director, Best Actor, Best Cinema, like all the big above the line awards. My God, it's a crazy time.
That's crazy to me. I think most of the movies I saw this year were sequels.
Well, that is something like this is the year that you came on board and joined Sequel Suck full time. Did you find yourself watching a lot more movies than normal this year?
Yes, I think I was forced into a lot more movies than usual this year.
Given the opportunity to experience the joy of your movies this year.
Peer pressured into them.
Yeah, encouraged to participate in the wonderful world of sequels. This is definitely probably the highest amount of sequels I've ever watched in a year, but I don't think it's just because of the show. Like, honestly, looking at this list, the majority of films on this list are films I would have checked out regardless of whether or not I was on a sequels podcast discussed or not, because there's a lot of films in here, kind of my jam. I mean, for example, we got, I mean, I'm a 90s kid, and this year we got a new Batman movie, a new Jurassic Park movie, a new, what else? Jackass movie, a new Fletch movie. I mean, these are the films that I watched when I was in high school, and they're back. And that's not including the fact that this year we got almost every major slasher.
True.
This year we had a Michael Myers movie, a Jeepers Creepers movie, a Leatherface movie, a Ghostface movie. We had a Pinhead movie this year. The only ones we didn't get from like the major franchise serial killer, we got a Chucky TV show.
Yeah.
So we didn't get a Chucky movie, we got a Chucky TV show. We didn't get Jason, and we didn't get Freddy, but we did get an announcement that there's going to be a Friday the 13th TV series coming up. So as close as we got to him, which, as Friday the 13th fans know, is huge news, because that franchise has been in purgatory since the 2009 reboot. No one has been able to like handle the rights. So it was umming and ahhing for ever getting another one. Now we're getting a series. I am sure off the back of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that Netflix did, and the Scream 5 and the Halloween Ends and the Pinhead, the Hellraiser reboot and the Jeepers Creepers sequel, we're probably going to get an announcement of a new Freddy Krueger movie.
I hope so.
In 2023, if it's a sequel, if it's a reboot, if it's going back to the original, it'll probably go back to the original. They'll ignore the reboot. Maybe even they'll do a Halloween. They'll ignore everything except the original. I wouldn't be
as long as
about it.
Robert Englund's in it this time, I'll be happy. If he's not in it again, then no way.
I think Halloween really has set the tone for like what you're going to do these days. If you're coming back, you've got to have one of the big names. And they got to hang around. Scream learnt the hard way that if you kill off one of your major characters, maybe if you don't pay the other one, they won't come back either, and suddenly you're down to one who you have to pay through the nose to keep around because they know you need them now. But anyway, we'll get to that as we go through the list. So hey Phil, are you ready to dive in? You ready to find this out? I'm really curious as to what your ins and your outs are going to be for this. I'm going to go through.
I feel like I know all of our number one, or at least I hope I do.
I mean, look, twist if it's not what we all think it might be, but let's find out. So I'm just going to go through the list. It's not going to be as chronological as I want, so let's just see what we got. It's probably going to be in a list that I wrote it down. So listeners, what we're going to do now, we're going to go through, we're going to say a movie. It's either going to be definitely out, definitely in, or maybe in. Now we've set a rule for ourselves. We can have a maximum of 10 films on our long list before we have to start getting serious. So if we get to 10 films, only 10 films in, we can't just put every film on the maybe list. We'll have to start, if one of them's in and a maybe and another one's a maybe, something's got to go. So let's kick it off with a Disney Plus original, near and dear to my heart, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, the movie. This one, I was a big Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers fan, and when they announced they were doing this movie, I was baffled but delighted. It is a sequel to the TV series, so it fits the criteria, and it's pretty wild and wacky. It definitely tickled my fancy a lot. Has some great voice actors in it. How are you leaning on this? Is this in? Is this out? Is this maybe for the top 5 sequels for the year? I
hadn't heard about it until you posted it in the group chat today. So for me, it's not on the list, but for you, I think it's in.
Look, I really like it. If you had seen it and were championing it as well, I could see it going as a maybe. But this is a big year for sequels, so even as a maybe, I don't like its chances of making the top 5. So I'm happy just to let it die. Right out of the gate. Speaking of letting it die right out of the gate, we also got a new Night at the Museum movie. Night at the Museum, Ka-Mun-Ra Rises Again. This is an animated one this time that follows the son of Ben Stiller's character. So they couldn't get any of the original cast back. So let's just animate it. And then no one will know that it's just John DiMaggio doing all the voices. I'm pretty confident to say this one is out. This is not on the list. Yeah. One that got talked about a lot this year in horror circles, at least, is Terrifier 2. Are you familiar with the Terrifier series at all, of Art the Clown, the Terrifier franchise?
Familiar with it, but I think it'll come as no shock to our listeners that I've never freaking seen it.
Look, I'm not that angry about it. Terrifier is a weird one in that it's kind of this, it's born very organically. Art the Clown came about originally as a part of an anthology movie where he was like the wraparound character. I think Tales of Halloween was the original one. And then a couple of years ago, I think they did a short, and the short was very successful among horror community. So they made a feature-length film, Terrifier, I wasn't a huge fan of Terrifier the first time I watched it. I thought it was just kind of nothing against it. It's nothing wrong. I think it kind of falls a bit into the category of what we talked about with Avatar, and it's just not a Gussie movie. And I watched it, and I love horror, but there are certain horror films that just don't tickle me.
Yeah.
This one, the big press that it got is that it was so well. Firstly, this film is over 2 hours and 15 minutes, so it is a huge runtime for a horror, especially the slash gore horror. It's not like a Stephen King It style horror where there's a lot of town history and character development going on. This is a guy in a clown suit doing some pretty horrible stuff. Over 2 hours, and also the early reports is that people routinely were vomiting over how disgusting
I saw that.
this film was.
Which isn't a great review in my mind, but
it depends on your audience. I have been thinking about this a bit, and like, if I'm being really brutally honest with myself, did that make me want to check it out more than before? And I think if I have to search the depths of my soul, it probably does. Not because I want to watch a movie and throw up, but because I want to see
what makes people throw up.
Not even because I don't even know if that's true. You know, there's with a lot of the big horror films, there's always that the press that gets put out with Psycho and things like people were fainting in the aisles and and people lost their minds. A woman was screaming in hysterics. I was like, this is all a lie. So I don't know how much truth there is in this, but I do want to see what kind of film could justify using that as its press.
Yeah.
And what kind of film you're making. I watched some of this film. I confess I didn't watch all of it because I did put it on at a time where I did not have 2 hours to commit to it. And from what I saw, I think it is more of the same again. I think it is good at what it does. I think it does what it does well. I think it's not a Gussie movie. So I am not going to be championing for this to be on our list of the top 5 of the year. One that has just come out in cinemas this week is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. What do you think? You fuck with Puss in Boots? Are you big on the Shrek spin-off series?
I love Shrek the original, but I've never seen any of the spin-offs.
I watched the first one today with my kids in preparation of the fact that at some stage in the near future I am going to have to see it. I haven't seen it yet because it has just come out. It has been 11 years since the last one came out, which seems just like a breathtaking amount of time.
Yeah, it's not Avatar.
Animated sequels. Yeah, it's an animated sequel that is a spin-off from arguably one of the most successful franchises ever that doesn't feature the main cast of the original film. It's just the cat. It's just him and his antics.
There a big demand for Puss in Boots these days, and they've waited this long to bring him back.
I mean, I guess there is a big demand for animated feature films in the cinema because Disney is really not like they were the ones, and they're not really giving a crap at the moment. They're kind of just dropping it all on streaming, and if they are releasing it, they're not putting any money behind their release because like we got the streaming. So this is a DreamWorks feature film, one of the last studios to not have their own streaming service.
Yet, give it time.
The animation style in this film is beautiful. They have changed it completely from the last one. It's almost like brushstroke animation, very 2D, very beautiful, very, very nice what they've done with it. I like everything I've seen. I've seen clips. I haven't seen the film, but I love what I've seen. I think it is a great franchise. I think maybe in a different year, there is a way that this film makes it into like number 5 on a list because there is always room for really good animation, in my opinion. I don't think that is the year. So it's not, I don't even think I'm going to put it as a maybe on the list. I think I'm just going to let it go.
Great for the school holidays.
We got two Pinocchio movies this year. 2 different Pinocchio. We got Disney's Pinocchio live action remake and yet another one in the series of weird exact remakes of their own properties that you can watch on their streaming service right now. They're just making it again
with Tom Hanks,
usually less good. So we got Disney's one starring Tom Hanks as Geppetto, and we got Guillermo del Toro's stop motion Pinocchio, which is freaking gorgeous. It is a beautiful looking film. He has really gone out of his way to not hide that it is a stop motion film. Have you caught either of the Pinocchios this year?
I haven't, but only because I heard really bad things about the Disney Plus one.
Well, let me tell you something. In a year when you have 2 Pinocchio movies to choose from, do not pick the Disney Plus one.
Okay.
It was heartbreaking. It's one of my least enjoyable films of the year.
Oh, wow.
It is really not good. my kids are the exact right age for this movie. They did not enjoy this movie. It finished and they were like, what was that?
Gosh.
It is probably the only time I have ever seen Tom Hanks not be good in a movie.
Wow.
I've seen him in movies that are not good. I've never seen him not be good. And I really don't know what, if I think it was rushed. I think suffering the problem that the Disney studios are suffering a lot across their Marvel properties and their other properties, where there's not enough hours in a day to do all the CG that they need for all the movies that they're bringing out. So they're just doing it shit. And this movie is like Tom Hanks talking to a CGI character the whole movie. And the CGI character just ain't right. And Tom Hanks just doesn't know what to do with it. Like, he's got nothing to work with. And I think perhaps that's why his performance is not great in this, because he's literally just like, look at the tennis ball and then look at the other tennis ball and then look back at this tennis ball. And the tennis ball will do something here, but we don't know what yet, because we don't know if we've got enough time in the studio to actually do the animations. This whole scene might be you, but it might be cutting to, and there are scenes where like the entire scene is just the camera on Tom Hanks, and you're like, why aren't you cutting to anything else? And you realize
there was nothing to cut to.
They couldn't animate it. They ran out of time, so it's just like him on a boat with some really bad CGI water behind him. It's like, oh my god.
See, like Pinocchio is one of my least favorite, even as an animated Disney movie. So like, it didn't sort of interest me.
The original always upset me. It always made me feel sad. I don't know why. It's just one of those movies that when it was on, I was like, I just feel bad.
Yeah, it's not one that you sort of want to rewatch.
It's not an upper. But the Guillermo del Toro one, beautiful, and I think a pretty good contender for best animated feature at the Academy Awards this year. Really does everything right. I would go so far as to put this as a maybe.
Okay.
It's a really good film. I don't know if it's going to make the final list, but it's too good to be left behind. Especially when we have nothing on the maybe list yet. It was really enjoyable.
No, and I do love a stop motion.
I'm really hit and miss on Guillermo del Toro as well. I think sometimes he's just not on my, or I'm not on his wavelength, I should say. But
no, he's not on your wavelength either.
Yeah, sometimes we're doing different things, man, and that's fine. He does what he does, and I love it. But this was a good one. All right, cracking through Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Are you familiar with the Jeepers Creepers franchise at all?
I am. I'm a big fan of the original.
Justin Long. There is a great meme that went around a couple of weeks ago that had a photo of Justin Long looking really happy, and it just said, if you see this guy in a horror movie, it's not going to end well with him. And man, statistically that is true. I do love the first one. They are a law of diminishing returns, and regrettably the creator and director of the Jeepers Creepers films is a horrible person who has done horrible things, which makes it harder to revisit those films. This film is not good. That is my review. It is not going to go on the list at all. Next up, Clerks 3. This has been a film of contention. Well, the original Clerks has been a film contention on this pod. Have you finished the first Clerks movie yet, Michelle?
No, I'm still only 20 minutes into the original.
Oh, my stars.
I will get there. As soon as we book in Clerks 2, I will finish it.
Have you watched any Kevin Smith films start to finish?
Yes.
Yeah?
Don't test me. Jay and Silent Bob, probably.
Strike Back? Because there's 3 giant Silent Bob movies. There's Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie, which is a cartoon. I haven't seen that one. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and then the sequel to that, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
I know I've seen Strike Back. Is that the one with the Scream thing in it?
Yes, it is, with the monkey.
Yeah, that one I've seen.
Scream character and Will Ferrell, and it's great. It's an absolute great stoner slapstick comedy. Brilliant, really enjoyable film. As is Clerks and Clerks 2. Clerks 2 is a great film and a great sequel that we'll be talking about on the show this coming year. Clerks 3 Clerks 3 came along slowly and then all at once. It was something that was teased for years by Kevin Smith. Fans of Kevin Smith will know he loves to tweet, and he loves to tweet as soon as he has an idea. So he won't wait until something's in pre-production. He'll be like, I just started work on the script for Clerks 3 today. And everyone's like, oh my God.
When's it coming?
And this happened years ago. And the big problem was that one of the stars who plays the character Randall did not want to come back and do another one. He thought that it was really nicely wrapped up at the end of Clerks 2. He didn't see a reason to do a Clerks 3, and Kevin Smith was like, I'm not doing the movie without him. So if he doesn't want to do it, there is no Clerks 3. That's totally cool. He did make the mistake of saying all this on Twitter, and I do think some Twitter fans were not kind to the actor, because they're like, what the fuck, bro? As Twitterers want to be.
Yes.
This one on Kevin Smith went off and wrote a sequel to Mallrats, and then turned that into a TV series of Mallrats, neither of which eventuated. So I don't know where they currently stand. He also had a big old heart attack whilst filming a comedy special in between, he finished his first one. First show was getting ready for his second show of the night. Had a massive heart attack, which they refer to as a widowmaker because it involves an entire artery being blocked, and in 80% of cases, people die. And it's typically men in their late 40s, early 50s, and men statistically in their late 40s, early 50s, usually married. Hence, it's a widow maker. And that kind of changed the way he looked at things. He went back, he rewrote Clerks 3, he reapproached everyone in his entire life, I think, from the way he tweets and podcasts about it. And kind of was like, I'm on borrowed time. And he kind of used that energy to let everyone else kind of absorb this glow. And they're like, man, yeah, let's make this movie. Like,
yeah,
what are we doing? Let's make a movie. And so they made Clerks 3. And Clerks 3 is about, so the original Clerks film, Kevin Smith was working in a convenience store when he made it. He made it in the convenience store he's working at. It's like one of the original Sundance darlings. He, maxed out a couple of credit cards and got a bunch of friends, and he made a movie and he sold it to Sundance, and then Sundance helped him sell it to Miramax, who at the time weren't the most evil thing in the world. Well, they were, but we just didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know about it.
And so Clerks 3 is about a character working in a convenience store who has a heart attack and then realizes that they haven't done anything in their life, so they decide to make a movie about their life, which they set in the convenience store they're working in, and they get all their friends to do it. So it's very meta.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds very meta.
It is the movie about making the first movie in the series, which was made about the director's actual real life. And this third one is about him remaking his first movie, but through the lens of a 50-year-old man who just had a massive heart attack. It is dark. It is a dark movie, and I don't know if that was intentional, if it crept in. And massive spoilers if you haven't watched Clerks 3. Skip ahead like 60 seconds. I'll bust out the spoilers really quick. But the film opens, not opens, but very early in the film, you learn that at the end of, and these are spoilers for you too, Michelle, because you're gonna have to watch this movie at one point. But at the end of Clerks 2, there is a big, like, happy romance reveal, and these two characters get together, and the guy they referred to as the hideous Chud, who is the Kevin Smith stand-in, Dante, he, like, the girl that is like the girl of his dreams, reciprocates that love, and they wind up together, and it's very beautiful. Rosario Dawson plays Becky, who's the girl. It's great. There's a big dance scene on top of a movie's restaurant. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful moment. And we learn very early on at the start of Clerks 3 that not long after the end of Clerks 2, there was a car accident, and his wife and infant child died in the car accident. And now it's just him and his friend Randall in this convenience store that they bought together at the end of Clerks 2, which is the only place they've ever worked and they've spent their whole lives in. And then earlier in the film, the other guy, Randall, has the heart attack and then decides he has to make this movie. And Dante doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want to relive his life, because it just reminds him that it's all leading up to him meeting the woman of his dreams and then her being snatched away. And so he's quite depressed. And then at the end of the movie, Dante has a heart attack for good measure, and he fucking dies. He dies. Kevin Smith kills the main character who is the stand-in for him, and the movie like ends with his funeral. And like, for someone who churns out like slapstick
comedies,
comedies about dick jokes and Star Wars, like, I wasn't ready. Well, I didn't know. I hadn't read anything about this movie. I wasn't ready for what this movie was doing, the direction it was taking. It's sort of the antithesis of everything that Clerks 2 was. Really caught me off guard. Man, but what I admire about this movie a lot is that Kevin Smith kind of like rock and rolled it. He made this movie and then he released it by going on tour. So you couldn't just like go to a cinema and see this movie. He was literally taking the movie town to town on a tour bus and doing like a show. So him and like usually Jason Mewes, who plays Jay to his Silent Bob, is there. Maybe some of the other cast. They do like a big, kind of intro show, and then everyone will watch the movie together, and then they do like a big Q&A afterwards. And then he would like go on to the next town, and the next, and the next, and that was how he rolled it out until eventually he's like, okay, that bit's done. Now you can stream it. And he released it on streaming. So I really admire that. The movie knocked me on my ass, but since I watched like I had nightmares about it, because these are characters that I like. Dante and Randall are characters I grew up with, and they're older than me, but like not that much. They're like 10 years older than me. They're not like fully grown men and I'm a teenager. Like, they're only 10 years older than me. I've been with these characters my entire life, and I was not ready for the fact that one of them was going to die at the age of 48. And I know they're fake people, but like for most of my cinema going life, like Kevin Smith movies, certainly, but also the Clerks characters have been a big part of it. And so I haven't stopped thinking about this. So I think I have to put this as a maybe, leaning towards I might have to argue for this to be in when we get to our short list.
And have you booked a doctor's appointment now that you freaked out about heart attacks?
I mean, I did when I was lying in bed. I was like, is that all right?
Is that tingling? Is my arm tingling?
I did eat a lot of Christmas pudding at Christmas Day. It could just be
indigestion.
Yeah, my whole ventricle could just be Christmas pudding. All right, moving on. That was a bit of time on Clerks, but it really was a film that got me right in the guts. VHS 99, the ongoing VHS anthology series. And this film has launched the careers of Radio Silence, who then went on to make Scream 5 and now Scream 6. And they are still producers of the VHS series. First one came out of nowhere, kind of, and was a real underground hit and grew and was really good. Second one, not too bad. Since then, it's kind of been, I think, a bit of law of diminishing returns, in that it's a bit cart before the horse. I think the original one came along because they had some great ideas, some short horror films, and they decided to package them together as an anthology rather than release them as shorts. I think it's starting to reach the point where they're like, hey, let's do another VHS, and then they like find some stories to throw in it afterwards. Like this one, 99, so it's set in the 90s, and it's all, found footage from camcorders in the 90s, so it's got that real 90s aesthetic, and that's kind of the bit that they're going for. The first two didn't really have a shtick. It was just like horror movies that someone found in horrible locations, and the surrounding story about the people who find the tapes is almost as upsetting as the actual movies. And then it was VHS viral. It was VHS viral, and it was all about like viral YouTube videos. And I was like, okay, cool, like definitely a good direction, but let's come. And then I think the last one was VHS 84 or something, and they're kind of they're getting a bit shtick. Yeah, look, I love an anthology horror. I'm a little bit bummed that this is like the peak anthology horror series we've got at the moment, because I think it could do better. It's not going on my maybe list, and I don't think that you're going to make an argument for it.
No,
and I know that Cable. So goodbye to that. One that came completely out of left field. I think a lot of Australians are like, what the fuck is this? In America, I know it knocked people on their ass. A Christmas Story Christmas. Are you familiar with A Christmas Story? The classic story about the kid who wants the BB gun, and his parents don't want him to get one because he'll shoot his eye out, and his dad gets a lamp that's like a lady's leg. It's like a Christmas classic that never quite hit in Australia. It's massive in the States.
I've seen the lamp, but I haven't seen the movie.
It is fucking huge in the States, like nonstop. And one of like the big kind of Easter eggy things that people only started figuring out a few years ago is the main elf in the workshop in the movie Elf is played by the actor who played the kid in the first one. And it was like, oh my God, it's the kid from Christmas. So A Christmas Story came out on Disney Plus again this year for Christmas. Out of nowhere, I heard no press about this in advance, starring that kid grown up with his own family now, and the actual same actor playing the kid.
Oh, cool.
And it came out, and I don't think a single person in the world watched it. I haven't been able to find a single review or talk to anyone who's seen it. I certainly didn't see it because I just did not have time. It's this weird anomaly where I think like a bunch of executives got together and like, holy shit, like what if we did like the classic Christmas movie? What if we did a sequel to that? Everyone would love it. But it's kind of, I don't know. I think it may have blown up in their faces. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the States it was a huge hit, but I can't find any information that it trended anywhere at any point. I think it came and then went, and no one noticed.
I didn't even see it on my like Disney Plus, the main screen.
It didn't even really get advertised to me on my own streaming service at Christmas time. Like that is very damning. So it's not in. R.I.P.D. 2, Rise of the Dam. Do you remember R.I.P.D. starring Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds, based on a comic book? Came out quite a while ago and was a terrible, terrible flop. 2013 it came out. It was a massive flop. One of Ryan Reynolds' first like actual flops. And everyone was really pumped for it. I think, I could be wrong, I think it's tangentially connected to the Hellboy universe with the comic books. I think if it's not the same creator, it might be the same like universe where the cops, it's R.I.P.D. That's the gag. So they're like, they're police who police the dead. So, but I think with the movie, the creativity stopped at the title. I think the comics are quite good, and these guys are like, yeah, they're cops who hunt the dead. Yeah. Right. The script writes itself, and then they forgot to write the script. There's some reason movie that came out in 2013 that nobody watched or particularly liked. We got a direct-to-video version of it this year, not featuring the same cast, but weirdly, in a year where almost no sequel had a number in it, like it seems like we kind of were done with sequels having numbers. We went onto words or just like not even really acknowledging it was a sequel. This one was like 2. We want everyone to know it's connected to the first one. Like, not even just R.I.P.D. Rise of the Damned. Jeffrey Donovan, who's a great character actor. I like it. He's in a lot of stuff. He's the lead in this one. And then I don't recognize a single other cast name. And I skipped it because of all the reasons I just said. So it's not going on my list.
No.
Enola Holmes too. Are you an Enola Holmes fan?
I'm not, but my mum watched it and really enjoyed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't watched the first one, but it's like on my list to get around to.
Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things fame playing Sherlock Holmes's niece, I believe, based on a series of books. First one, I think, was a modest success, but it has developed through the magic of streaming. Like, it stands. And I think there are like Enola Holmes stands now who fucking, they live that shit. And so the sequel came along. Henry Cavill. Poor Henry Cavill, who keeps getting kicked out of shows and movies. Didn't get kicked out of this one. He's in. I think he may even play Sherlock. Is that?
I think so. Yeah.
Am I crazy?
No, I think you're right.
Which, maybe there's a franchise for Hen Dog. He's gonna be.
Isn't there already a Sherlock franchise? Benedict Cumberbatch.
So there's also the Robert Downey Jr. movies.
True.
Hugh and Jude Law. Apparently, they're going to make another one of those soon. Guy Ritchie wants to do another one. He's one of those great characters that he's out of copyright, so anyone can do whatever the fuck they want.
Wait for the horror movie coming soon.
Yeah, look, if anyone, it's not something that cable is championing for. If anyone wants to make an argument that this goes on the list, I won't fight it because I understand for some people this is the fucking business. It's not a film that is going to rank highly for me for the year. What do you think about it?
Wow, I haven't seen it, so I probably won't make my list either.
Later, Zanola. Detective Night Redemption. We just spoke about the great Bruce Willis on our Die Hard 2 episode. Sadly, he is suffering health issues and has retired from acting. Prior to that, he churned out a bunch of movies, including a series of a character called Detective Night, Knight, if you want to look it up. And 3 of them, I believe, came out this year, or at least 2 of them have come out in Australia. I think the 3rd might be coming out, or may already be out in other countries, but not here. Detective Night Redemption. These look like badass movies. I watched probably half of this before I ran out of time. It's pretty cool. If you're in the mood for like some good Bruce Willis shenanigans, I think this is the best you're going to get in late career Bruce Willis. They're really just like letting him be Bruce. It's not a movie where he shows up for like 10 minutes and they put his name above the title. It's like, yeah, Bruce Willis is in this. We paid him $300 to come to this warehouse for 4 hours. No, he's actually in it. He actually plays the lead character, and it's a bit of a return to form. But it's just it's not. I think the best thing I can say about it is it's great Bruce Willis. The worst thing I can say about it is after I watched those 20 minutes, I have not rushed back to finish the film. So it's not on my list. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules. We don't say anything about this. It's not going on the fucking list. Orphan First Kill. This is another weird one. This is a prequel to the horror film Orphan. Have you seen Orphan?
I have seen Orphan.
You have seen Orphan?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, did you dig it? Orphan? It's a crazy one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember the plot of Orphan?
Yes, she's like a older woman that looks like a child. Fucking weird movie. But I remember my friend like sort of ruined it for me before I saw it. But I was like, I've got to see what this is all about.
Yeah, she has some sort of a medical condition. I think she's meant to be from Germany or some country in that region. And I think there's some illusion that if not Chernobyl, something in the water has caused some problems with the child. What's crazy about Orphan First Kill is Orphan came out in 2009 and starred Isabel Fuhrman as Esther. Esther is the orphan of note.
Creepy Esther.
Creepy Esther. Isabel Fuhrman, who is a real adult woman who was born in 1997, who played Esther in the first film. Orphan First Kill is a prequel to the 2009 film, and Isabel Fuhrman is back playing Esther again. So not only is this fully grown adult woman who has aged in the years since 2009, this movie is set before that one, and she's still a child. Surprise, surprise, and even younger child. The first one was crazy. This one, good, solid, fine. horror film. Julia Stiles is in there. More Julia Stiles, please. I love Julia Stiles. She should be in more things and should be given more to do. She's not really given heaps to do, but she does pretty good. She has the whitest white lady name ever of Trisha Albright in this movie. That was probably my favorite thing. Like, she looks like a pretty white lady, and they're like, "Your name's Trisha Albright." It's like, oh yeah, no wonder that little kid from Germany want to kill you. Poor little Ukrainian monster is coming at you wherever she's from. Hiro Kanagawa, who most people will not recognize the name, but will definitely recognize the face. Great actors, all the stuff. He's in this, and I really liked seeing him in this. Played a cop. He's a real good cop. Real like looks like he's no nonsense, but also kind of looks like he could be a friend. Real
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, real good in this role. It's not going on the list. It's fine. It's weird. It's not going on the list. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. Now, talking about movies that come way after the last one that seems like is done forever. Mike Judge bringing it back. Are you a Beavis and Butthead fan? Did you get into this when you were younger?
Am not. No.
It was hard for us to get in Australia. Like
MTV.
MTV didn't really have any good distribution deals here. It was on, but really
Foxtel?
sporadically. Well, yeah, it was on Foxtel, but I feel like it was on free to air, but only like sometimes. I think something like Channel 7 got the rights to show it maybe for like 4 months at 11 o'clock at night, and then they wouldn't show it for a year. And then, like, I remember at high school, somebody like, fucking Beavis and Butthead was on last night. And it was like, what the fuck? You'd like run and find the TV guy and be like, oh my God, it's on there. And then everyone would start recording it because you didn't know how long it was going to be there. It might go away at any minute. Like, there might just be one week they put it on. Yeah, we never know if we're going to see it again.
I think I was in that weird age where it was like not appealing to me, and I feel like, not to be like sexist about it, but I feel like it's kind of like a boy show. I was like a Daria girl.
Yeah, I think part of the cleverness of this is that it definitely was like two, I guess, like, I don't know if you can call them fuckboys because they're pre-fuckboys, but like they are they whatever these guys are evolved into fuckboys, which then evolved into crypto bros. Like, they were the whatever Beavis and Butthead were the initial version of that. And so they were very stupid characters, but that was, I think, the cover for the humor. Mike Judge is incredibly smart man who writes incredibly clever jokes, and I think there is a lot more going on than the surface. It took me years to figure that out, but I certainly enjoyed the poo-poo pee-pee humor of it when I was younger, and I don't think I got a lot of what was going on the surface. And then I watched Beavis and Butthead Do America when it came out on VHS. I don't even know if it got a cinematic release here. If it did, I didn't see it.
No.
And I watched and I was like, this is like really deep. And like, it wasn't like they really took the opportunity to say something with this movie. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I hadn't even seen Easy Rider at that time. So there's a lot of Easy Rider references. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm too young or not high enough to watch this. I don't know which it is.
Probably both.
So that was 1996. Bruce Willis is in Beavis and Butthead Do America as a fun little segue. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe 2022. They're back, baby.
What is with all these long breaks in between original movies and movie sequels this year? Seems to be the thing.
I was thinking about this, and I'm interested to see if you think I'm just being insane here, but I think it is because there is so much demand for content these days, but so little interest in investing in development of ideas. Seems like very few studios or networks are interested in like really going back to ground zero and finding something brand new. I wonder if like a door has opened for a lot of creators who had these ideas that they couldn't get up and running back in the day because, I don't know, maybe Beavis and Butthead Do America didn't make as much money as the studios hoped for, or maybe MTV were like, yeah, we're kind of done with this now. We're evolving into reality TV, so we don't need you anymore. And Mike Judge was kind of like shunted aside a bit, but the idea was always there. And now that, Paramount Plus is like, we need content. We've got 6 movies. Please help us. I wonder if they're reaching out to anyone who has a track record of producing something good and saying, what do you got? And he's kind of strolling in, swinging his big old Mike Judge idea dick and being like, another Beavis and Butthead movie. And they're like, oh, we were kind of hoping for something original. He's like you get what you get. And they're like, okay, well, can you have the script in by Friday? He's like, yeah, I can. You can do another Beavis and Butthead. So I wonder if that's what it is, and that's why we're getting this now. Haven't seen it. Haven't been able to get my hands on it in Australia. Okay. Yeah, it's around, but it's not easy to. I don't have Paramount Plus, and if you don't have Paramount Plus, it's kind of like you're locked out. So I haven't. It's just one of those streaming services that I had and I got rid of, and I haven't got back, so I don't have it. So sorry, you're not going on the list, but you get an honorable mention for sure. You get an honorable mention, even though I haven't seen it, because you deserve it, Mike Judge. My God, what a break. That's a bigger break than Avatar had. Like, that's
True.
impressive.
Yeah.
Cheaper by the dozen got a remake reboot again for the third time, I think.
Mhm.
Zach Scrubs, what's his name? Zach
Oh,
Scrubs. You
Zach
know what I'm talking
Scrubs.
about?
Yeah.
Zach Scrubs.
The guy from
Zach,
Tangled,
yeah, is that no,
isn't he?
no, that's what are you talking about? The guy from Tangled.
Isn't he the voice of Flynn Rider?
No, that's
Oh.
Levi. That's Shazam.
Oh yeah.
Oh, now you're messing with my head. Zachary Levi is the voice of Flynn Rider,
Oh.
and he's also Shazam.
Then
I
who's
keep,
this guy?
I keep going to say Zach Galifianakis because he was in Push and Boost. Zach Braff. Zach Braff
Oh, Zach Braff.
plays the dad
They're the same guy in my head.
in this one. I watched the trailer for this and skipped it, which it's surprising to me because I love Cheap by the Dozen, the Steve Martin version, and I love Zach Braff. And putting him in that story sounds great to me, but I watched the trailer and I said, no, thank you, no, ma'am. The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. So this is what has become of Ice Age. It's now called the Ice Age Adventures. And there's a character who I think appears a little bit in one of the more recent ones. They give him his own movie. He's got an eye patch and a scruffy beard.
Sure.
I read the synopsis. I hope my children never discover it. I never want to watch it. Moving on to one that I actually care about, Prey. We got, in addition to all the other 80s movies and 90s movies that got sequels this year, we got a prequel to the goddamn Predator. And for the first time in quite a while, we got a really good Predator movie, like a really good one. I was very impressed. Michelle, did you catch it?
I think I was told to watch it, but that doesn't mean that I did.
This is disappointing on all fronts because this film is really, really good. And I think it's one you probably enjoy a lot. The story is like, it is, if I didn't like the movie, I'd call the story paper thin, but it is a tight, concise story that works in the best possible way. It's like the inverse of like being a paper thin story. It's really, really short, sharp. You don't have a lot that you have to think about. You just kind of watch it unfold. It is filmed featuring Native American actors because it's a prequel to the other Predator films we've seen, and is about Predator landing in the wild open plains of pre-colonial America or early colonial America. And you have a indigenous community who the men in the community are going through their rite of passage, and they have to go out and catch this mountain lion. And one of the women is kind of like, fuck cooking, I want to go hunt big cats as well. And they're like, no, you can't. She's like, fuck that, I can. And the elders are like, if she can kill the cat, then yeah, she can. That's kind of our rule. Like, if they can kill the cat, they can do the men things. And so she goes out, and of course a predator shows up and all hell breaks loose. But in a really interesting way. It's a movie I wasn't too high on when I first watched it. I was like, it's good. It's fine. I can get on with my day now. But it hung around in the back of my head.
Do you need to have seen the original two?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. As a prequel, it works wholly as its own thing. In fact, the Predator movies are these weird kind of subsection of franchises where each film is wholly independent to it. So apart from Alien versus Predator 1 and 2, which kind of connect a little bit, but barely. And even you don't need to see any other Predator. Like Predator 2 has nothing to do with Predator 1. And
but
then the
stars
titles,
a friend of the show, William R. Perry.
It certainly does. The titles of the Predator movies kind of get a bit silly. You've got Predator, Predator 2, then a huge gap where we didn't get any Predator movies. Then we got Alien versus Predator, Alien versus Predator Requiem. Then we got Predators. Then we got The Predator.
It's like the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. It was that series, that period of time where like, we don't want to call something a sequel, just put the at the start so it's different. And then we get Prey, which I think is, in addition to being one of the better entries into the Predator franchise, also one of the better titles, honestly. Like, really cool. Comanche Nation is the indigenous community that are fighting the Predator. They did do a cool thing where they filmed a version of the movie in Comanche. It's or Comanche. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry to anyone that I've offended. I don't know the correct pronunciation. That's my fault. I think Comanche. They filmed a version of it. Sadly, though, the version they filmed in Comanche dubbed. So you have all these actors who are Comanche, who speak fluent Comanche, who did the dubbing after the fact, but they didn't do it live on set. So they recorded some sections. They do that thing where they record a bit of it in whatever language, and then they slowly just like suddenly they're speaking English, but it's like, no, they're speaking their language, but now we can understand them. And I really wish they just had I think the only qualm I have with it, I wish the movie had been entirely filmed in Comanche and subtitled. And there was no English in it, because there's not a lot of dialogue in this movie, which really, it's beautiful cinematography and really cool action. but B, it feels like it's almost like a bit of a middle finger to the audience and the actors. It's like the actors like, yeah, we're going to do this really cool thing no one's ever done before, but it's going to be like an added feature that it's not going to be that good. And audience, you're too dumb to read. You can't read words, you dummies,
Oh.
you idiots.
Yeah, no one
So
wants to do that.
That is my sort of big strike against it. But all that being said, really cool film and a really great entry into the series, and it's got to go on my definitely maybe list. Because it is such a good return. All Quiet on the Western Front got a remake this year from Netflix that I didn't even know was out until someone was like, I was in another chat group, was like, I'm watching All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm like, what? Did you get the Criterion edition or something? And they're like, no, there's a new one on Netflix. I was like, what? Haven't checked it out.
No.
Firestarter got a remake starring Zac Efron of all people. This one's a heartbreaker. Like I was really looking forward to this. I like Zac Efron. I know I said Zac Efron, like I like him. I just didn't expect him to be in a Firestarter movie. And I don't think anyone did. And I think that was part of the problem with this movie. The best thing I can say about this film is so this is a remake. Originally, Drew Barrymore played the little girl. Very famous image of her, like little kid, cute blonde, and like the background is on fire. Original movie's real weird. The book, this year I watched the original, read the novel, and then watched the remake, and also spent a lot of time listening to the scores for the original and the remake. The score for the original was by Tangerine Dream. The score for the remake was by John Carpenter. I kind of went in the rabbit hole a bit on Firestarter this year, despite the fact I didn't really enjoy either film or the book at all. Like reading the book, I kind of got halfway and I was like, I don't like this book very much, but I'm halfway through. I have to finish it. So I was like, I'd have to force myself to read a chapter every night. It was a bit of a drag. But the interesting thing about Firestarter is that the original came out not long after John Carpenter's The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing came out not long after Steven Spielberg's E.T. E.T. was a friendly alien. The Thing was not.
No.
Audiences wanted friendly aliens, so they didn't go see The Thing. That was a big bomb, changed the course of John Carpenter's career. People have now understood that it is a masterpiece, but a little bit late there, guys. But one of the things that changes, he was all geared up to do Firestarter. That was going to be his next film. The Thing was also like his first big studio movie. He was kind of an independent guy. That went away. They were like, you can't have Firestarter anymore. This is Stephen King in peak Stephen King years. We can't let someone who just directed a bomb direct this. They let an absolute nobody direct Firestarter. It was a bomb. No one really went to see it. People were like, I don't know what this is. The score by Tangerine Dream is incredible. Then John Carpenter went on and directed Christine, which is another Stephen King novel anyway, which is far more successful and is far more beloved as history has gone on. With this remake, they asked John Carpenter to come and do the score. So it was kind of like, hey, we know you never got to direct this, but come do the score. And lo and behold, the score is the one and only shining light in this film. It is an incredible score. It's beautiful. It's haunting. It's peak Carpenter. The rest of the film, I've listened to the score like I'd say at least 30 times this year. I don't ever need to watch the film again. So that's not gone on the list. Hellraiser got a remake this year. A remake, a reboot, a restart. I don't know what the hell this thing was. Did you catch? Well, it kind of isn't. It's not really anything. It's almost like at the start of when they make the inevitable sequel to this, the start of the movie will be like, hey, this was in an alternate dimension, because everything is different. Not just the story and the characters, but the lore around the Cenobites is totally different. Did you catch Hellraiser? No. Are you a Hellraiser fan? Have you watched?
No, I haven't seen any of them.
I feel like that could have been like your secret jam. I don't know, kind of lots of emo style stuff going. Lots of just people in like leather, just looking sad in these movies.
I'll have to check it out.
Pain is the real way to live, man. Like it's a real. I never really got it. I've seen most of the Hellraisers, but I've never been a big fan because they're just kind of a bummer. Like it's hard to have a good time at a slasher.
I know we talked about it on like one of our Halloween episodes, I think with Sean. And isn't it a woman now? Hellraiser's a woman?
Yeah, so and originally in the novel or the novella called The Hellbound Heart, the high priestess, which is what became Pinhead, was a woman. This movie's weird as shit. It doesn't work for me in any way. The Cenobites kind of become slapstickish. Like they run, for starters, like they chase after people. In the originals, they just kind of appear and are monstrous and terrifying and do horrible things to you. And this, like, they chase you like zombies. And one of them at one point, like, is chasing someone and then gets like knocked over by a gate, and you see like a Cenobite kind of flailing, like kind of like Ghostface when they get hit by a fridge
Yeah.
door, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And there's weird subplots about drug addiction that go nowhere for no reason, and the rules of the film change mid-film. It's kind of like if you invite the Cenobites, then they will offer you something, but it's kind of a trick, but maybe it's not, because their whole thing is like what we perceive to be pleasure, you perceive to be pain. So if you ask us for like this ultimate thing, we'll give it to you. But because we're not human, we're like otherworldly beings, your pity human mind can't handle it. So they're not really evil. They're kind of like neutral good, neutral evil in that sense. But then halfway through, they just straight up start like punishing people for no reason. And like someone will summon them, and then they'll be like, no, don't take me, take that other person. And they're like, all right, we don't give a shit. We just want to kill someone. And then the rules go away, and it becomes very hard to follow, and it's a bit dull. So it's not going on the list. Another film that has not had a sequel in the wild, that a lot of people I don't think even realize is a sequel, Confess Fletch, came out this year starring John Hamm. Are you familiar at all with the Fletch series?
I've heard, I think you talk about it, and I think even Bill brought it up on our interview podcast, and I have never heard of it.
So Fletch is there is a long-running series of novels by Gregory MacDonald about Fletch, who is a newspaper reporter who kind of embeds himself in situations and inevitably winds up getting caught up in some kind of chaotic deed. There were 2 films that came out in the 80s starring Chevy Chase as Fletch, Fletch and Fletch Lives. Great films. 1989 was when Fletch Lives came out. That was the last Fletch film be committed to celluloid. It has kind of been in development hell ever since. For a long time, our mate Kevin Smith was writing and developing a prequel called Fletch 1, WON, starring Jason Lee, who appeared in a lot of the Fletch films, who I think at the time was a perfect casting for Irwin M. Fletcher, because he's got a lot of Chevy Chase vibe. And so there's a lot of like quips and quick-wittedness that got stuck in development hell. It never happened. Other people have tried to make it happen. It all went away. Everyone was like, there's not going to be any more Fletch movies. And then literally out of nowhere, it was just kind of announced like, hey, we finished making a Fletch movie, and it stars John Hamm. He's Fletch now. And it's called Confess Fletch, which is the name of one of the novels that they took, which is why they titled it like that. Wild that it's just like, here it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you went around to a friend's house and they're like, hey, do you want to stay for dinner? And you're like, hi, I can't eat. And they're like, here's a turkey I've been roasting for 16 hours. You're like, I didn't agree to this. It's like, it's yours now, eat it. And you're like, oh God, what am I doing here? It's sort of like Confess Fletch is. Like Fletch fans everywhere. It's like, here's a Fletch movie. It's like, what? Where? What happened? When are we watching that? It's like, now. It's out. It's out now. John Hamm's Fletch. Get used to it. Let's go. It's really fun. It's a really fun caper movie. This is another one that was a grow with me. I have a qualm with it in that the Fletch and Fletch Lives, the Chevy Chase, a huge part of the movies is voiceover. Like Fletch, every scene that's kind of linking to another scene, Fletch is doing like this voiceover, like kind of giving us his inner monologue about what's going on. A lot of funny jokes, really ties everything together. They don't do the voiceover in this movie, and it is lacking. It's really hard, especially as I think they want this to be an entry point to an ongoing series for John Hamm, because everyone who works with John Hamm is forever trying to find something for him to do post Mad Men, which is why he keeps popping up in the weirdest places, like his role in Top Gun Maverick, which, albeit great, is the weirdest place to put John Hamm in a Top Gun movie. It's like, he shouldn't be in that. He should be in a Top Gun movie. He shouldn't be in that role. So I think everyone is constantly like, we love you and you're really funny and quite good, and we just need to find the right thing for you.
Yeah, just chuck him in.
I think this could be the thing for him. It was a moderate success. I think no one is making comedies at the moment. So any comedy that does a little bit well, that has a face that people love, I really think could go somewhere. He does some interesting stuff where like he's almost got a bit of dad bod going on in this. He didn't try and get jacked for it. He looks a little schlubbish in a good way, and it works for the character. I wish to God they did the voiceover. I hope it's something they fix in the next one. But it is going on my maybe list because I haven't stopped thinking about it since I saw it. And I kind of finished it. I was like, okay, cool. Pearl. Oh my goodness, Pearl. Tell me about Pearl, Michelle.
Well, I still haven't seen X. But I know that Pearl is the prequel to X.
Do you know the story of how Pearl came to be?
Wasn't it something to do with Mia Goth? They just really wanted to use her again for another movie, and now they're making would it be a sequel to X?
Yeah, sequel or a third entry to the trilogy, I guess it'll become.
Yeah.
Maxine, but with 3 X's is what it's going to be called.
Okay.
So Pearl is the prequel to Ty West's horror film X, which also came out this year, which is set in the 70s and based around a group of entrepreneurs who are making a porno film, and they use a farmhouse as a location. Mia Goth is one of the actresses in the porno film. And the farmhouse they rent is this really old, slightly unsettling couple who, as the film progresses, we learn are maniacs, or particularly the old woman whose name is Pearl, is the maniac. And if you knew it going into the film, it's pretty fun. If you didn't know it until the credits, even more fun is that Mia Goth also plays Pearl in heavy prosthetic, plays a very old woman. The interesting thing about Pearl is that they filmed it in secret. So they filmed X. They got a mandatory 2-week lockdown because of COVID while they were filming. Mia Goth and director Ty West were kind of chatting through the character of Pearl. It's like, hey, let's use this time to like flesh out the backstory a bit, because we haven't really got that in the script. Let's like lock that down so you know who Pearl is when we come back. And over like a couple of Zoom sessions, they fleshed out a big enough world that Ty West was like, I think this is a movie. I think I want to make this movie. Like, I really like this. They really gelled together as two creatives. He's like, I really want to make, like, let's do this. And so he approached the studio during the lockdown. It's like, hey, I know we're locked down and we haven't even finished this movie. It's A24, who are big champions of directors and giving directors a bit of leeway to make something crazy. And he said, I want to film a prequel, and I want to film it like while we're here. I want to do it right now before we even know if this movie is any good or a success, or if anyone cares about it. I want to do a prequel right now.
Isn't the trailer to Pearl at the end of X, if you stick around after the credits?
Yeah. Yes. And so what they did is they finished filming on this old farmhouse, and then they like fixed up the farm. They painted it up. They like, replaced all the boards that were no good. They completely redid it. And initially Ty West wanted to film it in black and white, and they were like, no, you can't film it in black and white. Like, we're letting you make a prequel to a movie that we don't even know if anyone wants to see. It has to be in color. So he went the other way, and he did it like in like vivid, extreme, like Wizard of Oz style.
Technicolor.
This is in Technicolor magic, which I think works even better for the film. And it is Pearl in the 30s or the 40s. I think it's 40s. And you see, again, played by Mia Goth, but this time without all the makeup. And you see kind of how she becomes the crazy old lady that she is when we meet her in the 70s. Might be the 20s, because she's very old when we see her in the 70s. So it must be like the 20s or even earlier. I think it might be in like 1911. It's like it adds up pretty well in the timeline of the film. So it's a really interesting film. I worry though that the story of how it got made is more interesting than the film itself at the end of the day. It's pretty cool. I mean, spoilers, like the reason that she is, a crazy killer in X is because she's crazy. Like, that's kind of what you find out in Pearl. It's just she's always been crazy.
Yeah.
She's just a crazy person who does crazy murders, and she's been doing them a long time. And we see her in X, she's still just doing crazy murders. So, 1918, it's set. There you go. So the timeline does that up. So that was kind of a downer. I was hoping there was something more to it than that. It's not. It's kind of like she wants to be a dancer. She fails one audition, murders her whole family and anyone else who comes near her, and then seemingly proceeds to do that for the next 50 years until this porno shoot shows up.
Is that not what normal people do when they fail one time?
I'm never coming to your house. But it's a fascinating way to make things. I remember when it was announced, like just before X came out, they said there was a story that came out. It was like Ty West secretly filmed a prequel to X at the same time, and it's coming out this year as well. I remember talking to some friends of mine in a group chat and saying, like, I wish they did this with every movie. Like, I wish particularly every horror movie, I wish they made the next one or the prequel while they were doing it, because if it's good, then you just like, here's the next one, and everyone's like, oh my god, yes, we don't have to wait 6 years for this to happen. And if it's bad, you just never release that other movie. Just don't do it. So I feel like for the audacity of the experience, and for the story that we got out of it for the year, and for being one of the better horrors of the year, I guess, I kind of feel like it has to go on the maybe list for now. Moving on, Hotel Transylvania, Transformania. It's the fourth one.
Transformania.
Transformania.
Can it go on the list just for that?
None of the original cast came back for this Amazon Prime original.
Oh
No
gosh,
Adam Sandler, no
Selena
Andy
Gomez.
Samberg, no Selena Gomez, no anyone really. So it was behind from the start. I quite enjoy the first two Transylvania films. I think they're pretty good fun. As someone
Mhm.
who loves horror, I'm glad that my kids are like getting an early introduction to the classic
Yeah.
Universal horror movie characters. This one are not so good. Moving on. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Did you see Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
No, but I haven't even seen Sonic the Hedgehog, but I'm
You
aware.
know what? Check it out, man.
Yeah,
They're really fun films.
I was
They're
gonna say
really, really fun films.
Cable talks about him
Yeah, I had
a
a
bit.
great time with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I had like a weekend where my wife and my daughter were off doing something else. It was just me and my son. He's
Mhm.
3. I was like, what are we going to do? He's like, I want to go to the movies. I was like, all right. And the only thing that was out that he could see was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And he had not seen Sonic the Hedgehog 1. So I was like, all right, let's watch Sonic the Hedgehog 1. And we watched it and he friggin' loved it. And I was like, yeah, this is really fun. Uh, James Marsden is doing a great job in the Sonic the Hedgehog films of being the human character that talks to tennis balls.
Mhm.
It's kind of become his stock in trade. Like he did it with Hop with the Easter Bunny
Yes.
movie, which he was really good at as well. Like he is very good in that movie. And then he's back doing it in Sonic and then again in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I kind of wish someone would give James Marsden a better job. I feel like he's in this weird, like no man's land of his career at the
Mhm.
moment where he's in movies that are successful and
Yeah.
he's making those movies better by being in them, but he's not being given anything to do. Like he's barely in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. He's just kind
Mhm.
of there as to be exposition for a couple of scenes, so that Sonic can go off and do their thing. But he's a very good comedic actor.
Mhm.
He's really like he's got chops, and I don't think people appreciate that. He should be given more comedies. He's great in Hop. Like he's genuinely very funny in that movie. And he's great in this. And Jim Carrey is great in this. Jim Carrey is like almost back to like peak good old days Jim
Mhm.
Carrey doing this. Like he's gone full like mask Ace Ventura, like over the top, but it works because of the world. And friggin' Ben Schwartz as Sonic is incredible. So fun. He's such a good voice actor for this. It's so good. I'd never in a million years thought that I would watch or give a shit about or even be like championing for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but I'm gonna put it on the maybe list because this movie it's a really good movie and it's a really good sequel.
Cool.
Like of all the sequels that we've gone over so far, this is one of the ones that really is like we are going to continue what the first one created, like a very
Mhm.
old school style sequel. It's like, no, we remember the first movie happened. We're not going to try and ignore it and trick you guys, and
And
we're
it
not going
hasn't
to
been 2,000 years between movies.
yeah, and we're not going to change anything to like fit the fact that we want to get this new young star into it. So it's like, oh, well, what you didn't find out in the first movie is that you're actually half Chilean. So he's this Chilean pop star we want to get in the movie. He's going to be your brother now for no reason. And like, what? Yeah, this movie really good fun. Minions: The Rise of Gru. I just couldn't bring myself to watch,
No.
so we're not talking about that. Jackass Forever. Now that's how you get four into
Into
the
a title.
title of your fourth movie. Take note, Hotel Transylvania. Are you on board with the Jackass
I am.
legacy? Are you
I
into it?
Yes, I am. I grew up watching that show, but as a Bam Margera fan, I boycotted this one.
You didn't.
Not necessarily on purpose, but like that's my
He
excuse.
he they he was brought onto the film and then they had to kick him off because he was too drunk and high. It's not like they just like, you can't be in this one. Like, we want you in this one. And like, you have to get sober because you are really in a bad place. And he's like, fuck you guys, I'm going to kill everyone. They're like, oh, well, you can't be in the movie now. So you haven't seen Jackass Forever.
No, but I've seen all the other ones.
You are missing out not just in a great movie, but like a really great cultural moment for people of our age who have watched all the other
Mhm.
the shows and the movies because it's weirdly emotional. Like it's weirdly not just like a bunch of dudes who are probably a little bit too old to be doing this now
Mhm.
hurting themselves. It's genuinely like a beautiful movie about friendship and about camaraderie and about getting through it. There's some really surprisingly like touching and probably some of the best done COVID stuff
Mhm.
in this movie because they got shut down mid movie because of COVID. And then when they came back, they had to adhere to all the protocols. And because of the nature of this movie, where like there is no action, it's like everything's just film. You see all the COVID protocol stuff because there's no way around it.
Mhm.
So they incorporate that into the film. and the way that they kind of address where the world is at in 2020. Well, I guess the movie was filmed in 2021 and then released in 2022, and where not just the world is at, but where cinema is at, where they are at as people, where they're going, like how long they've known each other, all the things they've done together. It's like I was really surprised when I was watching it how much I was like, oh, this is just really making my heart feel good. And then like the next scene, someone gets a snake biting their dick. You're like, what? Like it's perfect balance of like humor and heart. One of the better.
Did I hear there's like a tribute to Ryan Dunn?
There is beautiful one, beautiful tribute to Ryan Dunn, and there's no real like pretense around the fact that A, that they're older, B, that like many of them have had substance abuse issues. Like Steve-O has been very open about it on his podcast and his YouTube channel, but he also talks about it in the show about like how much harder it is doing stunts now that he's not just fucked up all the time. It's like,
no, he's sober.
Try setting your head on fire and doing a backflip when you're not drunk. Like it's a totally different ballgame. So really fun, just joy. Like just a movie start to finish is like it is joy in ways that you wouldn't suspect you would feel from like
Jackass movie.
silly boys doing silly things. Like it goes beyond that with this one. They have grown up in a way that is unexpected because they don't grow up in that like, oh, we're not going to like put mouse traps on our nipples anymore. But they have grown up in the way that they kind of frame putting mouse traps on their nipples. It's very odd thing to explain, but it really does work, and it works beautifully. And I think this is going to be my first. Has to be. I think this has to be on the top 5. I think I will fight really hard for this, not just because I love it, because I think of what it does as what a sequel can be, as what an ongoing like legacy of films can be, and what a film that was filmed in the COVID years and acknowledging that can be really great. And then there's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the latest entry into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, the Netflix original that is picking up the trend of taking a classic horror slasher franchise and making a sequel that ignores every other sequel except the first one, and even go so far as to try and do the Halloween thing and bring back the original actor playing the original part from the first one, but now is a hardened, bitter older woman who constantly is on the ready and fucks that story up so hard. It is unbelievable. It's almost like someone watched Halloween 2018 and was like, that's what we should do for our Texas Chainsaw movie. Oh, but we don't want anyone to know. So it's kind of like, copy my homework, but don't make it obvious. So like, all right, I'll copy it, but I'll deliberately get the answer wrong.
Yeah.
So they're just like, let's do every bad thing. Did you watch this?
I didn't watch it because I like the 2003 one too much. And when I heard that they were like,
really? The Jessica Biel remake?
Yeah. When I heard they were just sort of like counting out that movie, I was like, no, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, I was really pumped for this. And I saw in the trailer there's the scene where you may have seen it, where there's all these like hipsters on a bus because they're all the shtick of this one is like the town that's near where the original massacre happened is abandoned. It's a ghost town. But secretly, ever since not long after the events of the original massacre, everyone else in Leatherface's family has died, and he has retreated back to the only other home he ever knew, which was an orphanage there, because apparently he was an orphan there, and then he kind of got adopted by the crazy family. But the older woman who ran the orphanage is still there. She refuses to leave. She still lives in the ghost town. It's kind of I think it's like her and a mechanic and maybe like a cop, and that's it in the entire town, which is really
right.
Because like it's a whole town.
Yeah.
But she has been harboring Leatherface because she's like the only woman or the only person he won't like kill and eat because she's like his mother figure anyway. And these hipsters have come to the town to buy the entire town and revitalize it as like a I don't know, a new like getaway for creatives who want to make artisanal bread and crochet and it's leaning quite hard into like how dumb are hipsters, which is it's like 8 years too late for that bit, but whatever, man. And
like
they accidentally
scary Sovereign Hill.
Yes, that would have been a better title. And they accidentally kill the old lady in just a stupid set of circumstances that it's slapstickish. But they have a bus full of investors who are coming up to see what the town could be. So they try and cover up that they've accidentally killed this woman. And of course, Leatherface is like, woo, and unleashes bloody hell. And the trailer they used is Leatherface, the bus investors, they're all on the bus, like wondering what's going on because things have gone bad. And Leatherface like gets on the bus with the chainsaw, and everyone is like looking at him. And then they all like hold their camera phones up and start recording him. And then one bespectacled fuckhead at the front is like, dude, you do anything, you are so cancelled. To a man wearing a blood-covered apron and the skin of the human woman who cared for him his whole life, that when he finds her dead body, he cuts off her face and wears it on his own. And is holding a giant chainsaw. And so, unsurprisingly, Leatherface starts the chainsaw and then just massacres everyone in the bus, and they can't get away because on the bus. And that was the trailer that came out. And I saw that, and I was like, all right, this movie is going to go one of two ways. It is going to be a brilliant connection of satire and of the slasher franchise evolving into new age, whilst simultaneously ripping down all of the new staples that highbrow horror want to put in. Or it's going to be the dumbest thing ever. And they took the low road. And it was a bummer. I really think that's all that needs to be said about it. It's one of my lowest ranking films for the year. It really was a big disappointment. Part of that is probably the disappointment. Like if there had never been a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie ever before, and I saw this, I'd be like, that was a weird, dumb horror movie, but it was all right. But as something that was really trying to rip off what Halloween has been doing, and really made a big promise about how, like, hey, we're course correcting, because the Texas Chainsaw movies timeline is fucking mental. If you try to figure out what order to watch those movies in, like that's a day of your life. Where you're like, wait, so this one comes after this one, but it was released before this one, and this one is the reboot, but then they kind of like incorporated into it, and then the sequel to the reboot wound up connecting to the original, so then the reboot is actually connected. Fuck me. A lot of work to figure those movies out. And this one was like, we fixed that, and they didn't. And speaking of fixing it and leaving people potentially not getting what they wanted, Halloween Ends came out this year.
Yes, it did.
The end of David Gordon Green's trilogy, the end of the end of the end that we thought we were getting in 2018. And he brought out the definitive last Halloween movie and brought Jamie Lee Curtis back. And then, of course, it made money. So we got two more. This was it. This was the end. We've done an episode of Halloween Ends on this show. Remind us how you felt about Halloween Ends, Michelle.
I gave it 1 star. I watched it on my phone. I was not a fan. The book was better. Read the book. Don't see the movie.
An article came out about how the novelization actually fixes a lot of problems people had with the movie. So you are not alone on that island. People are noticing that is something that is out there fixing things. You watched it on your phone though.
Yes.
I feel like
I wasn't going to pay to go and see it.
I paid to go and see it in cinemas twice, voluntarily and quite happily, if I'm being honest. As the year goes on, and as you've had more time to think about this movie and get some distance from it, has your approximation of it changed at all? Have you softened on it? Have you doubled down? How are you feeling about Halloween Ends now that we're almost at the end of the year?
Still 1 star. Still didn't make my list at all.
Is it because is any of that a disappointment level with you not getting what you thought you were getting, or is it that you didn't enjoy what the film was and how it was presented to you?
I think it was a bit of both.
Did you have expectations going in? Like,
I don't know what I wanted, but whatever we got wasn't what I wanted. But I know that makes no sense. But you shouldn't have to read the novel for the movie to make sense. And if
I agree. But
if they had made the novel into the movie, it would have been so much better.
There are certainly scenes from the novel that I think would have been great in the film. I don't think you need to read the novel for the movie to make sense. I do think that there are some, in particular, there's one scene that people are starting to cotton onto. There is a chase scene in an old abattoir, I think it is, with the girl. If people remember in the 2018 Halloween, Allison's boyfriend makes out with some chick at the party, and that's why she runs off after he chucks her phone in the punch or whatever, which, like, incredible way to solve the mobile phone problem in a 2018 film. Always love that scene. Always great. Like, yeah, she's got her mobile phone. It's like, oh, but her boyfriend's a dickhead and throws it in the dip. It's like, fucking amazing. Like, great. I haven't seen that before, and that's such a good idea. So that character, we follow her for a bit in this book. Directly after that event, we go back in time to 2018, and she's walking home this other guy from the party who is a bit of an outcast picks her up, and they wind up falling in love, and they have this like quite passionate love affair that continues all the way through the events of Halloween Kills, to post Halloween Kills, to I think maybe a year after Halloween Kills, or a few months after Halloween Kills. And they it's their anniversary, and they go out into the woods near this abattoir to root in a car, and talk about their future, and they're getting ready to leave Haddonfield, and they see an abandoned garbage truck, which we learn in the novel is how Michael Myers escapes from the main part of Haddonfield the day after he gets that beat down that he got, and then before he kills everyone in the town and runs away. And as they see the truck, he appears and chases them through this abattoir and brutally murders both of them in a very classic like stalk and slash type 80s masked villain with a knife thing, which I thought was a really cool moment. And it's something that definitely we didn't get in Halloween Ends. We didn't get any of the stalk and slash. We kind of went in a very different direction. And I think it would have been nice to see Michael do that perhaps one last time. It would have been a nice way to open the post credits of perhaps the movie. Like I still love the Corey opening. I don't want to mention that, but perhaps the post credits that we go back and we see where the fuck did, like, it's been 4 years. What the fuck happened to Michael? Like, just show us that before we get sewer rat Michael, I think would have been quite nice. And there are a couple other things in the novel that are cool that could have gone in. One of the screenwriters wrote the novelization, one of the 3 listed screenwriters, which I think it's rare. I don't know if I've ever read a film novelization that's happened in. I really enjoyed it, that they did it, and I really enjoyed what they did with it. There are some things that they did. I'm like, there's a reason this isn't in the movie, and this is a reason you were probably shouted down in the writer's room when you pitched it, and I get why you want to hold on to it, but come on, man. I really, the more time goes on, the more that I spend time with this movie. Again, this is a film that I watched twice in the cinemas. I talked about a lot, not just on this podcast, but with other friends, with other film buffs, with horror friends. I've read the novelization, so I've been kind of re-immersed into the world a bit. I've been listening to the score a lot. Like it's been living in my head. And the further I get away from it, the more I like it, and the more I appreciate what David Gordon Green did with this movie. I have listened to some arguments. People like, if you switch Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills, you kind of get a perfect trilogy, because you get like something very unexpected after the first one. And that can be the one where I was like, what the hell is going on? And then you get the third one that like brings it home in a more safe way. I guess, I can see the merits to that argument. But as I discussed on the pod, I think that we were due for a horror film that kind of was like, we did this already. We did this 12 fucking times. It's done. Like, can I just try something different? Just one. It's 12 movies of the same thing. Can I please try something different once? Please. And the studio said yes. And I think David Gordon Green delivered on something that is really lasting. And I genuinely believe as time goes on and as people kind of settle into the fact that this is the Halloween Ends we got, I do think expectation is a big part of it. It is not the movie I thought I was getting. And I understand I am one of the lucky people who was okay with that. I understand for a lot of and look, different franchise, different day. I could very easily be one of the people's like, what the fuck was
what was going on?
What were you thinking? But yeah, for me, this really worked. I'm going to put it on the maybe list, because I feel like when we get to the end, I'm gonna make an argument to get on this. I will fight you when the time comes.
Well, to be honest, like, it would have almost made my list had I not seen more than like 5 sequels this year.
That's a low bar to jump over. Well, speaking of low bars to jump over and franchises that return, Scream 5 came out this year, or Scream.
Yes. Scream.
Not 5, but now must be 5, because the next one to come out is Scream 6. So you kind of, what are we talking about here? Well, have we got Scream 2, 3, 4, not 5, but then 6. Like, banging my head against the wall there, but that's just a piccolo I have. I really get frustrated about lazy titling, and I have always been disappointed by that. If you had told me at the start of 2022 that in a year when a Scream movie coming out, that at the end of the year I would not be banging on pots and pans and screaming into the ether about how this is definitely top 5, if not the best sequel that came out this year, I probably would have slapped you in the face. But here we are at the end.
I probably would have slapped you in the face too, because I feel the same way.
But here we are at the end of 2022. And as we discussed on our episode, go back and listen if you want. This film is not in my personal top 5. Spoilers. This is a film that I really, really struggled with. How did you feel about Scream 5, Michelle?
I think I might like it a little better than you do, or a lot better than you do.
I think
Hearing
you
that,
like it I think you like it a lot better.
a lot better. Yeah, but I definitely liked it more than Scream 4, which we've discussed.
This will be our undoing. This argument, this disrespect to Scream 4 just will not stand. I can't understand it at all. So as a one of the many classic slasher characters that was brought back into our cinemas this year, is this, like we just talked about Halloween Ends, is this where you thought we were going when you sat down to watch Scream 5? Is this what you thought you were going to get?
I think so, but I was still hoping for more.
Okay.
And I'm hoping maybe they retcon that with Scream 6 coming out.
Well, it's in New York. It's in New York.
So it has
Do you know it's in New York? Do you know how I know it's in New York? Because the only thing they talk about when they talk about Scream 6 is it's in New York. It seems like the only plot that they have worked out for Scream 6 is that it's in New York. It's on a subway because, hey, New York, we got subways. If Ghostface doesn't kill a hot dog vendor in this movie, it's going to be a failure.
Yeah, or carries around a pretzel or something.
He has to kill a hot dog vendor, preferably with their own hot dog or like the hot dog water. But Ghostface has to kill a hot dog vendor, or this movie is not a New York slasher horror movie.
Shot in Canada, not in New York.
Was it really?
Yeah, shot in Montreal.
I mean, what is happening? What are you talking about? It's the only thing the movie's talked about. Is it set in New York and they didn't even like. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm putting on my my I Love Scream hat for Scream 6, and I'm willing to let there be a blip on the radar at this point, and I'm willing to go in wholeheartedly excited and genuinely open to whatever Scream 6 is going to be. I will go and see it in the early days, if not the day of its release, because I do love the Scream films, and 4 out of 5 ain't bad in my opinion. And every horror series at some point stumbles. I love and unlike with other horror franchises, and this is something that I've had to remind myself of throughout the year, this is the only horror franchise, one of the big boy horror franchises that really we are getting to experience in real time. Even though we're getting new Halloween movies now in new Texas, they're kind of having to deal with what has already come before in varying ways. But Scream is unfolding before our eyes. Like, we were there watching the first one when it came out, and then we have been ready and waiting for each iteration. And I imagine, if we were born 15 years earlier and were obsessed with Nightmare on Elm Street, there'd be Nightmare on Elm Street films like, are you fucking kidding me? That's the new night, like opening weekend we're at the cinema, and same with Halloween, and same with Friday the 13th, like same with any other franchise. So I have to remind myself that, like, with time, my feelings about Scream 5 might change. I am already open to and a little bit excited about rewatching it in the new year with sort of like a fresh perspective. I have already watched it 3 times, but like just to like reset my brain and see. I'm willing to accept there may be something I missed. I will never and cannot ever forgive the murder of Dewey.
No.
I will not ever accept that was the only option or the best option or even a good option. However, he's a fictional character and I'm a big boy, so I'm just going to have to grow up. So are you going to make an argument for this to be in the top 5 for the year?
Yes.
Okay. I can live with that.
It grows on you. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, is this all we're getting? But like, subsequent watches.
So does Athlete's Foot. That doesn't mean you want it, All right. Rolling on. I feel like this may not be your wheelhouse, but maybe a surprise you. Downton Abbey, A New Era. Is this your jam?
No.
Downton girl?
Abbey. No.
It's one of Downton Abbey is like a fan base that I can't peg down. Like, the strangest people in my lives are like really into it. And we're really excited that another film is coming out this year. Another strange one, like a TV series much beloved. They made a movie. I didn't think anyone really cared about the movie, and then a bunch of years later, like, here's another one. They made
another movie.
Okay, not going on my list.
No.
A movie that has the unique, I think, on this list distinction of simultaneously being a remake and a sequel, Death on the Nile, which is of course based on Agatha Christie's novel, which was made in 1978. It was remade this year, or released this year, made by Kenneth Branagh, and is a sequel to his remake from a few years ago, Murder on the Orient Express. Kenneth Branagh seems dead set on positioning himself as Hercule Poirot for the next decade, and the studio seems content to give him an insane amount of money to make these movies, because every shot is like, that is so expensive. All of the sets, but also the CGI. I mean, for a movie that has no superheroes punching giant robots, this movie has so much fucking CGI in it. And so many big name stars. However, Kenny B has made the mistake 2 films in a row now of casting a very problematic man at the center point of his films. One of the stars of Murder of the Orient Express was Johnny Depp right before the Amber Heard trial. And one of the stars of Death on the Nile is Armie Hammer right before the cannibalism came out. So
how unlucky can you get?
He's really like, ooh, and it is a shame, because the rest of the cast in both films, I think, does admirably. I think they do a really good job. They know what film they're in. They do it well. Have you caught Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile?
No, sometimes I'm like, why am I on a sequel suck podcast and I have seen no movies?
I mean, these ones are currently both up and available on Disney Plus. And I know you have that one, so you could just like pop it on and check it out anytime you want. It is, another film that is well over 2 hours. But it's a murder. How do you feel about murder mysteries? Are you down with murder mysteries? Do you like that kind of whodunits? Like, this is kind of Scream, but without a guy in a cloak.
Well, like, I just watched Knives Out last night, and that was a murder mystery that I very much enjoyed.
That owes everything to Agatha Christie and to the Hercule Poirot movies. In fact, Benoit Blanc is very clearly a satirical riff on Hercule Poirot. I think you dig like Death on the Nile, Murder on the Orient Express, because they really are like, they tap into a lot of the same little areas of the brain that the Scream movies do. It's a whodunit. Unfortunately, in this one, the who done it, the doing of the done it takes too long to come around, and the who did it, you don't really care. And then when you find out, like I picked what was I haven't seen the original Death on the Nile, but I picked what the reveal was of this movie as it was happening.
Yeah, that's like the worst.
It's one of those movies where they do it, and then later they come back and like, haha, you missed this. And I was like, I did not.
No, I saw it all.
In fact, it was so obvious, I thought I was meant to see it. So for half the movie, I was like, okay, so this is exactly what happened. But that's so obvious. That must be the path that they want to lead us down. So I won. And then as the movie was going, I was like, there's literally no other way this could unfold. Like, the only people who possibly could have done this are the people that I'm certain did it.
Yeah.
Who very obviously did it. So unless there's like some Deus Ex Machina thing, was like, there was secretly a cabin boy in the cupboard the whole time and you never saw him. And then the reveal comes and I was like, yeah, 2.5 hours I've been waiting for this. What are you talking?
Yeah, so that's too long.
It is a slow, boring movie. I'm not quite sure who these movies are for, if I'm being honest. Murder in the Orient Express. I feel like the demographic is like our grandparents. But obviously our grandparents are going to the movies because both these films had massive budgets. And I will be absolutely stunned if we don't get a third Hercule Poirot movie coming up soon. Look, if you like murder mysteries, it's a good movie. I love murder mysteries. I love Murder, She Wrote. I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson's Knives Out movies. I like the Agatha Christie movies. I think this is probably a case of like the original is gonna be better. Just because I feel like it suits the vibe. A bunch of rich white people cruising down the Nile in Africa talking about money and classism just doesn't hit the right way in 2022. It's kind of like, kill them all. Feed them all to the alligators. What are you talking about? They
chuck them overboard.
I pay my many employees quite well. They get multiple days off during the year. It's like, fuck you, get in the ocean. What are you talking about? There's alligators in the Nile. Go and play with one of them. And having Armie Hammer be one of the main characters throughout this film really does take you out of it, because like
problematic.
Very so not going on my short list.
No.
But still, I certainly a film I would recommend to people if you like murder mysteries. Lightyear came out this year. We got a spin-off to Toy Story that is kind of a prequel, but we learn in the opening scroll is not necessarily a prequel, but it is the movie that Andy from Toy Story watched that made him fall in love with the character of Buzz Lightyear, which is why he asked for the toy for Christmas which I think is a way of explaining away why Chris Evans is doing the voice instead of Tim Allen.
I think so, yeah.
And not much more. It also is a film that changes a lot of the lore of the Buzz Lightyear character that we do get. Like in Toy Story 2, we learn that Zorg is actually Buzz Lightyear's dad. Spoilers, in Lightyear, we learn that Zorg is actually Buzz Lightyear from the future. Like some pretty hectic things when you're in your own universe, then you've established the rules to just be like, we didn't watch Toy Story 2, which is what it felt like. This movie did not work for me. Did you see Lightyear?
No, I put it on to start and then got like 5 minutes in. I was like, no, I can't do it.
It's not an easy in. It's work. This movie is work.
And I love the Toy Story movies. And like, I think I watched a review of it saying it was completely different. And I was like,
it really
leave
is.
it alone. Yeah.
It's completely different. And it lacks the heart of the Toy Story movies. It tries to manufacture some of the emotion kind of in the third act and fails. It does have what I very lovingly and very delightfully consider to be a new brand of character called the Disney gaze, which is where Disney will very subtly and quietly put in a same-sex couple, not really have them on screen long enough for everyone to notice, and then they're gone and they don't come back. So one of the main characters' parents in this movie are two women, but it's kind of like they only talk about one of the mums. She's like, "Oh, mom, you knew my mom growing up," and never about like my other mom. It's just kind of like, you see like one shot where it's like the two women, and you're like, "Wait, is that it?" And then the door closes, and you're like, Disney gaze. They did it.
They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying just enough that they can say they're trying without getting into trouble in China, I feel is what's going on. But it look, I very love, like from by my heart, very much enjoyed the fact that it is something that is happening in movies. I wish Disney would just pull the trigger and just friggin' do it.
Yeah.
Just do it like the rest of the world and be like, yeah, some people same sex, who cares?
Yeah.
I know it's a movie for kids. I watched this movie with my kids. My kids were kind of bored watching this movie. The only thing they really took away from it is that the robot cat in it is quite delightful and fun. He's a really great sidekick. And the robot cat is called Socks, and we have a pet cat called Socks, so that blew their minds. But that's really like the number one thing they took away from this movie is like, that cat is the same name as our cat. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
So like it was one of those movies where when it came out, the kids were asking for the toy of Socks for Christmas. And then by Christmas had forgotten the movie existed. Like they didn't, Christmas Day, there was no unwrapping of presents being like, I didn't get socks. Like they forgot
about it, which is not a good sign. Not a good sign at all.
Yeah. Another Disney surprise. Hey, here's a sequel that we're not going to tell anyone about. Disenchanted came out very recently. A sequel to the much beloved Enchanted. James Marsden again.
Yes.
This man, he's around, but again, he's not
underused.
Not the only thing given a lot to do here. Did you catch Disenchanted?
I did, and was.
Yeah. Tell me about Disenchanted.
Was slightly disappointed.
Oh, no. Oh dear. This is a bit of a running theme of the Disney drops of late, I feel. What is the deal? I haven't seen it. What is the plot of Disenchanted?
So we're in the future. Oh god, names are going to escape me now, but they've had another child. So what the hell are their names again?
Amy Adams and James Marsden?
Yeah, no, not James Marsden. McDreamy.
Oh, right. That's right. Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah, so Patrick Dempsey and Amy Adams get together in Enchanted.
That's right.
Patrick Dempsey already has a daughter, and then they've had another daughter.
Okay. I mean, the cast is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, it's all
Patrick
the same
Dempsey,
people.
Amy Adams, Maya Rudolph. They got everyone back. Adina Menzel, James Marsden, Yvette Nicole Brown, Alan Tudyk is in there doing a voice of a character. Adam Shankman is the director. Like, you know, it's pretty good.
It had a decent premise, like, you know, wishes get made and things go awry and people that are good turn a little bit evil, but it just wasn't done to the best of its abilities, I didn't think. I loved the original, so I had high hopes.
I also love the original, and I was excited in the sort of the 4 minutes between learning this movie existed and this movie coming out. I feel like it happened at the same time.
Yeah.
But then it certainly didn't creep anywhere near the top of my my list.
It was good, but it wasn't as good as I was hoping, which was kind of a theme for a lot of Disney sequels this year.
It's certainly a theme for the next film we're going to talk about, which I feel like we could just copy paste our conversation. Hocus Pocus 2.
Yep.
Came out this year on Disney Plus. This film has been slated for us to talk about on the pod for quite some time, and
Mhm.
we have just been very busy in the background this year, so it's been hard to get it going. But through little dribs and drabs of conversations and little like nods and winks, I started to piece together that perhaps you did not enjoy this film in the way that you were hoping that you would. Is that fair to say?
I think it's just your expectations get so high. Like Hocus Pocus, I think we are well aware, is in my top 5 favorite movies, maybe
And I
even
think is
my
an
top
absolute
3.
classic film that has stood the test of time and perhaps
Yeah.
grown through time as people have appreciated just how good it was and how well
Hmm.
it stacks up. They got the band back together, they had the original 3 sisters
Hmm.
back again
Yeah.
in the cast. They seem to have money when they made it. It's
Hmm.
not like it's one of those projects where the cast or the director was desperate to do it and had to, you know, mortgage a house to make it happen. Like this is a movie that people paid to make.
Yeah. Yeah, it was well done and I enjoyed it. And it has, spoiler alert, made my list. But I just wanted to love it so much more because the original is just so good that this was
Yeah.
just a little bit of a letdown, which was probably just me going into it with high expectations. And I am excited to watch it again for when we do finally talk about it.
I don't even know if it is you going in with high expectations. There's a couple of things that I think are fundamental issues that didn't get addressed with this movie. One is I think the script needs another like 4 edits because
Mhm.
it is not a very deep script. It feels like the outline of the story, and then they don't really do much with any of it. Whereas I think the screenplay was like very well done
Mhm.
and built really solidly before anything happened. I think this is probably a case of a bit of cart before the horse, where they're like, "Hey, like we reached out to Bette Midler's people, and she's open to doing another Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
Let's find out everyone's schedules and let's do it." And then once schedules were set, it was like, "Now we got to finish the script."
Mhm. It's funny
Big
because I don't know if you read it, but they released a few years ago Hocus Pocus to the sequel, like as a book.
no.
It's a complete, well, they released a book. It was Hocus Pocus and then Hocus Pocus the sequel. So it was the book version of the original movie and then this a sequel written, but it's a completely different
Oh,
story to what we got. And
and is it better?
I think I preferred it because it was like Max, it was Max and Allison's daughter, I think, and her friends sort of like fighting the witches. So
So
at
that
least
is part of the problem. Is like the kids that they have in this movie are just new characters.
yeah.
It's not like there's no connection to the previous story in any way,
Mhm.
except it's like another romp for the Sanderson sisters, which means it is quite like it's quite thin what's going on
Mhm.
because we're basically just retreading a lot of ground from the first one,
Yeah.
which is odd because I think it's significant. This is one of the few sequels from the year that has the number in it. Like they're not hiding that this is a sequel. They're not like
Mhm.
Hocus Pocus again or
Yeah.
Mostus Pocus or just fucking calling it Hocus Pocus
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Like they quite loudly and proudly like this is a sequel to the
Mhm.
original, and then go about retreading a lot of what happens in the original
Yeah.
and bringing in brand new characters that are not are not really exciting enough to warrant ditching all of the characters from the
Mhm.
first one, save for the Sanderson sisters. I think another big problem in this is that when the original came out, Bette Midler was Bette fucking Midler.
Mhm.
Sarah Jessica Parker and Kathy Najimy were young, relatively unknown actors.
Yeah.
In the intervening years between Hocus Pocus and Hocus Pocus 2, Sex and the City happened.
Mhm.
And I think Sarah Jessica Parker now considers herself to be the lead in anything she's in.
Yeah.
She is not the lead when she's next to Bette Midler because she's Bette fucking Midler. No one is. Like
Exactly.
if you're not Bette Midler and you're in a Bette Midler movie, you're not the fucking lead, champ. There's your hint. Um, but I did notice in this a lot of the dynamic is a bit off because Kathleen Najimy, like, she slips right back in. She's like, "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know this
Mhm.
character. I know
Yeah.
how to rock," and she's really great. But it almost feels like Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker are kind of like vying to like shoulder each other to be the one who's
Mhm.
standing in the spotlight more. And it's like that's not what this movie is. Like,
No, and it was also the first thing I remember saying was it was not Sarah Jessica Parker playing Sarah Sanderson, it was Carrie Bradshaw playing Sarah Sanderson. It was
yes.
very obvious in just her mannerisms and things she did that was completely different.
Well, something else that, and this is something that my wife Jess picked up, is that like Sarah Sanderson is quite like sultry
Mhm.
and sexy, but in like almost like in an innocent way.
Yeah.
In a lot, like she doesn't realize that she's like being quite as sexy and seductive as
Yeah.
she is. Whereas in this one, I wonder if like perhaps Sarah, like she's in her 50s now. Perhaps she felt a little bit weird about being the cutesy, goofy little like Betty Boop type.
Yeah.
Look at my boobs.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm a grown ass fucking woman.
Mhm.
It's like you are, but your character has been locked in a fucking book from the last. You haven't
Yeah.
progressed as a
Yeah,
character. Like
exactly.
you have to pick up where you left off.
Yes.
You have not grown as a person. And I think perhaps there was a bit too much of Sarah Jessica Parker being like, well, I've lived a life in the time since I made that last movie, and I'm bringing that to this. And Bette Midler is, I mean, she was, a fully formed star, adult, and character when she made this movie. So she's just like, I'll just do that again.
Yeah.
But I think that Sarah Jessica Parker really struggled to fit back into the dynamic and to fit back into the character. And there wasn't any acknowledgement of that in the script, that like we didn't get a scene where, Bette Midler is like, oh, go and seduce that boy for me. And her being like, I don't do that anymore. Like,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Or there was no moment where we kind of, as an audience, were told like, yeah, she's not going to be the same, but the other two are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then she is. And I feel like that messes with the dynamic, which then spirals off into the movie being lesser than it could and should have been,
which is just disappointing because she's my favorite. Like Sarah's my favorite, but also like sort of spoiler alert for when we do this episode, but I would have loved it more had they focused on more of like the prequel. Like those kids that played them was so good. The girl that plays young Winifred had like Bette Midler's mannerisms down to a T.
Amazing.
Like focus on that, like how they became the Sanderson sisters, and stick more to that story.
Look,
like
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a prequel script around up until the point where someone was like, hey, we can get the original 3 back. And they're like, fuck a prequel. Just take whatever we can from the prequel and cram it on the start of this one. I don't know. It's an odd one. So where does it sit for you? Is this something that is a maybe for you? Is this something you're really going to fight to get on the list?
Oh no, I'll fight for it, but
okay,
only because, like, as we've discussed, I was very limited in my sequel movie watching this year.
All right, kicking along. Not many left now. Fantastic Beast: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Are you a Fantastic Beaster?
I am not. I am a Harry Potter fan, but never got into Fantastic Beasts. Haven't even seen the original. Sort of heard that read is good.
Love the original. Original's great. I did not get a chance to catch this one, and I'm not super mad about it because I feel like perhaps they decided they were going to do 7 of them before they made one, and I feel like maybe they just overcommitted, and now they're kind of like, we've got to churn out a bunch more before we finish this. Speaking of being committed to something and never being able to stop it, Thor: Love and Thunder came out this year. Thor: Love and Thunder may go down in history as being one of the more important Marvel movies because it is the Marvel movie that sounded the alarm. It is the movie that came out this year that made everyone go, I think Marvel might be in trouble. Eternals kind of maybe rang the bell, and people were like, hey guys, look over there. There could be a problem. Did you see that? Did you see what just happened? Everyone's like, nah, we didn't see nothing. Like, I don't know. Did you see Eternals? I don't know what's going on. And they're like, nah, it's fine. It's fine. And then, we got Spider-Man No Way Home, and everyone's like, oh yeah, no, what are we talking about? That's great. That's fine. Everything's great. And then we got Doctor Strange, and people are like, yeah, that's pretty good. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then we got Thor: Love and Thunder, and everyone's like, oh no.
Which is sad because the Thor character is good. Like, granted, I have not watched all the Marvel movies. I'm only up to Black Panther. If you watch it in
I'm doing
order.
timeline order, and I'm up to the Hawkeye TV series in chronological order, which is good timing because it's a Christmas time TV show. So I've caught up at the right point. Thor is one of the more interesting characters in the MCU because they keep trying to fix him. The first Thor movie directed by Kenneth Branagh, who we just spoke about as Hercule Poirot. Weird movie in tone. Marvel's still figuring itself out. He's kind of like a himbo idiot, but also an omnipotent, all-knowing God, and they didn't quite know how to reconcile that. Thor: The Dark Era, one of the worst films, just plural, and definitely the worst Marvel film to date. Really, like, just irredeemably bad, and caused a lot of trickle-down problems for Marvel because, like, oh shit, what are we doing? That's why we didn't get a Thor movie for a while, and then when we did, Taika Waititi came in and was like, he's a comedy character. This movie needs to be a comedy. What's with all the sad shit? and turned into a Technicolor friggin' wonderland with Jeff Goldblum being pure Jeff Goldblum and having all kinds of weird monsters from all over the galaxy, and Thor being just a delightful idiot and letting everyone improv and making it just a flat out comedy. And Thor Ragnarok was fucking badass. It's great just as a standalone movie. Like, you can sit down and put on Thor Ragnarok, never having seen a Marvel movie in your life, and apart from like one or two lines, we're like not quite sure what they're talking about there, which really are throwaways that do not matter to the movie you're watching. It's a great standalone action sci-fi romp. Really, really fun movie. Thor: Love and Thunder is, I hope, but maybe it's not. Maybe we haven't seen the top yet, but I think it's the apex of the CGI problem. We talked about earlier on with Pinocchio, where there is just so many films that are being churned out that got delayed because of COVID, that production houses are trying to finish the post-production CGI on. They don't have that. There's not enough human beings who can do the things that need to be done to the level they need to be done to make them look actually good. And Thor: Love and Thunder, I think, is the apex so far of what happens when
it's rushed.
when you run out of time, when all the money in the world can't change the fact that you have set yourself an impossible deadline, and you get a film that just looks bad. It just looks bad. And Taika Waititi is back to direct again. And they're doing some really great things. Like, there is a classic Thor storyline in which Natalie Portman's character comes back into Thor's life and becomes Thor. Spoilers, which is what they're doing with this movie. It's a great storyline that's all there for them to follow. They've got great actors, great writer-director in the chair. I don't know what happened. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know if like all the good ideas just didn't have time to happen, and they're like, just do that. Come on. I wonder if they rushed the production element of it through, like the photography element of it through, so they could get it to the CGI studios earlier. But as a result, you have like the live action stuff that kind of feels rushed and half done, married up with the CGI stuff, which is definitely half done, and a movie that is just flat. And like I said, like, we might get to the end of next year and be like, oh man,
that was great.
Do you remember when Thor: Love and Thunder? We thought that was the problem. Or we might get to the end of next year and be like, wow, I can't believe Marvel wrapped it up. Like, since Thor: Love and Thunder, they started like winding shit down. They realized now we just get Disney Plus TV shows. There's no more $120 billion, although they've already announced the next 20 years of movies. But
yeah, true.
Oh, it's stressful. And while we are on that track, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness came out this year as well. One of 3 major Marvel franchise character sequels we got this year, direct sequels to standalone Marvel movie. Well, as a standalone as they get, standalone Marvel movies. We've got a new Thor movie, a new Doctor Strange movie, and a new Black Panther movie this year. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Did you see this one?
Yeah.
Bad Michelle. Bad Michelle. This one is really good. This one was good.
Yeah,
I will pull that back. I came
things.
And rightly so. I came around on Doctor Strange. The first time I watched the first one, I was like, meh. And then I really quite liked what Benedict Cumberbatch did with that character in the Avengers movies, and I really liked him in Spider-Man: No Way Home. So I went back and I rewatched the first one. I was like, I get it. Like, you were kind of hamstrung. Like, this is the origin movie. Marvel was still in the early days of figuring out what to do with new characters. He was one of the new standalone characters they introduced, when they started being like, okay, we need to make movies about someone other than Thor and Captain America and Iron Man. Who are we going to do? Doctor fucking Strange, I guess. Yeah. And I think knowing where the character goes and going back to the start, I can appreciate what they had to do in that movie to set up where it would go. And so I enjoyed it a lot more. This one is pretty good. Again, a lot of CGI issues, a lot of shots where you're like, guys, like, if you can't do it, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
Some shots that are really great, but it is the whole movie start to finish. There is no point when you don't realize you are watching CG. The suspension of disbelief is quite hard. And in a Doctor Strange movie, is that hard? There's a lot of like, holding out the fingers and doing this business. And then, and you got to believe they're opening like a portal to another dimension. And this movie is all about the multiverse, and that's in the title. And opening portals to different dimensions and going through them, and just little things like there's one multiverse that they fall through at one point where everything is paint and they become paint for a moment. But the effects don't like pay off. And there's another one where they start slowly turning to like ribbons, but the effects, it just looks cartoonish. And I think this also suffers a little bit from, because I am going through the Marvel fucking infinite multiverse. In order, I watched the What If TV show recently, and there's an episode which explores like what if Doctor Strange went in a different direction that kind of covers a lot of the multiverse stuff. And because it's, traditional drawn animation, and they had time to do it, looks really cool. And because it's already a cartoon, you're not trying to convince yourself you're watching something real. So you have that suspension of disbelief, and it kind of does a lot of it better. That being said, though, what's her name? Not Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, the other colored female, the other female character with a color in her name, who is a Olsen. What's her name?
Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen is great. She's really great in this, and Cumberbatch is really great in this. The character that they introduce, who like their power is being able to open rifts to the multiverse. The character, and I know this is what happens when you make comic book characters from a long time ago into characters now, but the character's name is America Chavez, which is fine as a name. Like, I know there are lots of people called America. It's a beautiful name. It's lovely. But when you're in a superhero movie and the character of America is in peril, and you constantly have characters going, "We got to save America," it starts to grind a bit. You're like, could you not just give her a superhero, like call her Stargirl or something, so you can stop saying like, "Oh my God, what happened to America? Oh my God, we've got to save America.
America's in trouble."
Yeah, like just again and again and again. It's like, this is. Did you hear? Do you guys hear it when you said it? Do you hear how that could be distracting, particularly people who don't live in that country?
Yeah,
who are like, what? But look, it's fun. It's not on my list. I wouldn't fight putting it as a maybe. But you haven't seen it, so it's not going to be maybe. It's something I would recommend people check out if you like Marvel movies. It's one of the better ones of the current iteration. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Haven't seen it. Yep. I'll be honest. Haven't seen it. Not for lack of want. It's one of the more recent ones to come out. I know that it's been out a little bit at this point, but I have been busy, and there are lots of movies that I've been watching. It's not getting the reviews or the box office that everyone thought it would. It's kind of stalling out at the moment, about $700 million, which, oh, God forbid you only make $700 million. But, we're talking Marvel movies here. It's different. A dollar isn't a dollar in Marvel land. They were predicting a minimum of $850.
Wow.
For this, and they're already being like, remembering the original Black Panther is $1 billion movie, and in one of the top 4 highest grossing films of all time. So there were high expectations. Obviously, very sadly, Chadwick Boseman has passed away and is not reprising his role as Black Panther. And the mystery of this movie is who will take on the mantle. I haven't read anything, so I don't know at this point. But it sounds like the way that they have gone with this isn't giving the core audience, what they were like hoping for. And what the movie ultimately becomes is like Marvel via a movie, essentially, like mourning the loss of a great actor, and the film just becomes sort of like a wake more than anything. Which, beautiful that you would immortalize an actor who was so important to so many people that way, but not a great time for a superhero movie. Like, not a fun jam.
No.
I mean, even like the 3 minutes that they cover Tony Stark's funeral in Endgame was kind of a bummer. That was enough. Like, to sit there for 2.5 hours and be sad a guy's dead. I've been sad about Chadwick Boseman being dead since he died. I don't need to go and then relive it in a film. So maybe that's part of the problem. So not on the list. A film that, when it was first announced, very surprising to me it was happening, but was announced as part of a package deal. So we're getting, I think, a minimum of 4, possibly 5 of them. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Benoit Blanc is back, baby. And another crazy, wacky mystery to solve. Have you checked out Glass Onion?
Yes, I watched it today.
Oh, great. So it's very fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Knives Out universe that Rian Johnson is creating?
I enjoyed it, but I have to say I enjoyed Knives Out more than Glass Onion. But Glass Onion, but Glass Onion was still really good. I just feel like this one was a bit more convoluted in the story, whereas Knives Out was a bit more like succinct.
Yeah, see, I think I feel the opposite, because when I first saw Knives Out, I enjoyed it, but I was left kind of wanting a bit. I was like, oh, is that what the reveal is? And that's it. There is no like twist upon the twist, which I guess is my fault for going and expecting it to be the movie that it wasn't. It's not the movie's fault. It's not the movie I thought I was getting. Like,
Halloween
I still enjoyed every part of Knives Out, but Glass Onion, I think it is a slightly more complex twist, which I enjoyed, and I also think that Daniel Craig has really like really settle into
Oh yeah.
his role as Benoit Blanc, and is quite
Mhm.
relishing the opportunity to do it. It's another film that directly references COVID as being
Mhm.
something that exists in our lives, and it deals with it quite nicely by just taking all of the people and fucking them off to a private island, and that's
Yep.
how you get around masks
Yeah.
and crowd control. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Like to look at.
Yeah.
Oh, I want every piece of clothing that Daniel Craig wears in this movie. I just want to get around dressed like Benoit Blanc. God, he looks comfortable and cool. So good. The island is just gorgeous. Greek islands,
Mhm.
yachts, oceans, beautiful people.
I was hoping you'd say that you were going to say you wanted Kate Hudson's wardrobe instead.
I take it. She's
Yeah.
got some pretty cool get up. I'd take Duke. I'd take Duke's outfit. God, was it Dave Batista?
Mhm. The
Just
speedo and the gun.
speedos and a gun. That's how I want to get around for summer. It's just speedos and a gun. I mean, this movie had me probably 4 minutes in, where there is an incredible scene, in my opinion, where Daniel Craig is in a bath playing Among Us with friends on
Yes.
his laptop, and the friends on his laptop, Angela Lansbury in what I think
Yeah.
might be her last screen role before her passing,
Mhm.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Yep.
I think
Natasha Lyonne.
Natasha Lyonne, and a sci-fi author whose name escapes me, but like, and they're not playing characters; they're playing themselves. It's like
Yeah.
Angela Lansbury, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Yes.
Natasha Lyonne, and
There was
Benoit Blanc
there
are
was a
playing
lot of
Among Us.
celebrity like name dropping in this movie for some weird reason.
Yes, well, I guess because they were all famous wannabes, but
Mhm.
also I thought quite good in a film that starts with like some celebrity cameos. The celebrity name dropping actually winds up being quite integral to the plot in the
Yeah.
end. So some clever writing there. Look, this is a movie I will happily watch time and time again.
Mhm.
It's fun. I don't think knowing the twists once you get to the end means like, oh, I don't want to watch to the end because I know what happens. I think it's quite good to watch again. Performances are great. I quite
Yeah.
like Edward Norton. I think he's going through a bit of a renaissance at the moment.
Mhm.
Settling into the fact that this is the career that he has. I think a lot of the apparently he was a bit difficult to work with for a little bit there, which is why he's not the Hulk anymore. He was meant to be the Hulk. They're like, oh, we don't want you to be in this 50 movies if this is how you're going to be. But I think he's really like coming to his own a lot, and
Mhm.
perhaps working with Wes Anderson really helped that. There's a lot of Wes Anderson-ness to Edward Norton's performance, certainly in this movie, about being a part of an ensemble of larger than life characters in
Mhm.
a absurd location that couldn't possibly exist in the real world. But who fucking cares? Like, what a good time
Yeah.
watching this movie.
I'm excited to hear that there's more coming because I did
Yes,
ask that today. I
yes.
was like, I wonder if there'll be like
So
another one.
Ryan Johnson signed a friggin' massive deal with Netflix
Mhm.
off the success of the first Knives Out movie to make, I believe it's a minimum of 4
Oh wow.
Benoit Blanc movies. So whether or not he directs all of them, I don't
Mhm.
think that's the deal. I think he just has to like produce, and
Yeah.
his production company has to like give Netflix at least 4. So I wonder if he'll do one more and then hand the baton on, and they'll become this ongoing thing. Like honestly, give me a Benoit Blanc movie every year
Yeah.
if this is how you're going to
It's a
do it.
great character.
I love murder mysteries. If this is the type of murder mystery we get in 2022, goddamn yes. I
Mhm.
think it's really interesting having Death on the Nile and Glass Onion come out in the same year, and seeing like the precarious balance that Death on the Nile is trying to pull off of like setting this very old classic story in the time in which it was written,
Mhm.
and trying to not update anything. Like nothing about the movie is trying to reference that this is actually 2022 we're doing this in.
Yeah.
Whereas Glass Onion has obviously the benefit of being like, yeah, it's happening right now. We're talking about
Mhm.
like crypto, and we're
Yeah,
talking about
exactly.
like Banksy paintings, and we're talking about, future fuels and things like that.
Mhm.
So it definitely has the benefit of not having to have any pretense. I'm gonna put it on the list. I may even like put it as a definite. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
What do you
so.
think? Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I'd say
right.
definitely.
All right. So Glass Onion is definitely on the list. How many have we got on the list so far? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That makes it 11, which means we've got to cut something.
Okay.
So I'll just do a recap of what is on our long list right now.
Mhm.
We have got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Clerks 3, Prey, Confess, Fletch, Pearl, Sonic 2, Jackass Forever, which I currently have as a definite, Halloween Ends, Scream 5, Hocus Pocus 2, and Glass Onion, which we are also putting as another definite.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I can see something I'm willing to cut straight off the bat. Can you see any that you're willing to
Like
cut straight off the bat?
the first half of that list, I haven't seen any of them, so I'll
I
let
mean,
it.
I'm pretty happy to let Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio go.
Yeah.
It's I think it's great, but of the movies on the list, it's certainly one that I've spent the least amount of time thinking about.
Mhm.
So that's gone. We are back to 10, but that means everything that goes on, something's got to come off now. Avatar: The Way of Water.
We just spent how long talking about this the other night?
Probably as long as the goddamn movie
Almost.
on there. I mean, what do you what do you think about Avatar: The Way of Water on the top
Well,
five?
it is on my list. It's not like in the top three, but it made my list because visually I couldn't get past how good it looked. And I know Cable only saw it in 2D. You had it in 3D and you didn't
3D
enjoy it.
HFR.
I think
Yep.
mine was in HFR now too that I
No,
looked into it.
I can't handle that hyper realness.
Oh, see,
Okay, so I guess another conversation has to become like, are you willing to put this on the long list at the expense of something else? So I'll reread the long list for you, and you can tell me if Avatar's going to take the place of something. Clerks 3, Prey, Confess Fletch, Pearl, Sonic 2, Jackass Forever, which actually, no, not Jackass Forever, because that's in as a definite. Halloween Ends, Scream 5, or Hocus Pocus 2 are the films that you can bump potentially for Avatar: Way of Water.
we'll see. Like I could bump like a whole bunch of those movies, but you'd probably fight me on them. Like
I mean, you can make your case. I mean, this isn't, this is what we have to accept. This is not our individual top five we're doing. This is the sequel suck top five, and I'm willing to be open to the committee. I know Cable's list. I know where Avatar: Way of Water is on that list, but I'm interested to see like how hard you're going to fight for it before I go to the third man at this point. Is there any titles there that you're thinking of bumping for Way of Water?
only the ones I haven't seen. So maybe even like Pearl.
Okay.
Because was X better than Pearl? Would you have said?
I thought X was better than Pearl. Yeah, I thought X was better than Pearl.
I just think like Avatar, story wise, this is what I keep saying to people. Story wise, kind of boring, but visually, you need to see it. You need to see it in 3D. That's what it's made for.
This is certainly something that I had to reconcile with myself, that like it is an achievement. I definitely suffered from the HFR taking me right out of it and not making the visuals look as good as I thought they should look. But my experience is just the experience of one person. So you're suggesting that we bounce Pearl from the long list and we replace it with Avatar: Way of Water at this
Pearl,
point.
or what's the other one? Fletch Lives? Is that
Confess Fletch?
Confess Fletch. But I'll leave it up to you because you've seen them both.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Well,
I think if Pearl wasn't as good as the original,
I think I'm gonna Pearl is on Cable's long list.
Okay.
It's in his it's in his top 10. He's got Pearl in his top 10. I won't say where just yet, but it's in his top 10. However, Confess Fletch is quite high in my top 10 of the year. So I think I'm gonna drop Pearl. I think I feel better about cutting Pearl.
Okay. He's not here to defend himself, so too bad.
Well, it's also like I'm thinking big picture. I'm thinking of where the Fletch series may go moving forward. And this being the foundation of a really great comedy series. We don't have a lot of comedies. In fact, that's one of only two comedies, true comedies, I think, that we have on the list. The other being Jackass Forever.
Yeah.
Clerks 3, as we discussed, I don't think is a comedy, surprisingly. And I think the Pearl, we know we're getting Maxine, and then I think that's it. Like, we're not going to get an ongoing series. And I think this is not as good a film as it is a story. So I'm happy to let that go.
Okay.
All right. So Avatar: Way of Water makes the long list. No, we are getting down to the tail end. Jurassic World Dominion.
No.
Is that a no? I didn't see it. Or is that a no? God, this movie, I don't want to talk about it.
No, I saw it, and oh my God, what a piece of crap movie.
Wow. All right. So where do you stand with the Jurassic Park films, the first three that we got?
Jurassic Park is in my top 10 favorite movies, the original.
Excellent. Correct. Same.
And love the whole Jurassic Park 1, 2, and 3. Like, I know not everyone's a fan of, I think, 3.
Yeah, I never understood the hate on 3. I never got that. I always knew it wasn't as good as the first two, but it wasn't until like I got older and people were like, man, Jurassic 3 sucked. I'm like, when did this happen? What are you talking about?
I enjoy them all. And Jurassic World 1 I enjoyed, and even Jurassic World 2 I enjoyed. And then they killed it when they made the movie about locusts.
That was hard. That was really hard when I was like, wait, this isn't just a side plot. This is the central plot of this movie, is that a company made mega locusts that are going to wipe out. It's not dinosaurs that are the problem, even though the world is populated by dinosaurs now. it's locusts are what we're going to
Yeah.
follow. This was a hard right turn from the writer director Colin Trevorrow that no one saw coming, that no one wanted. I read some interviews with him where he said after Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom, when all the dinosaurs get released into the mainland and world, and the world is filled with dinosaurs now, he said he wasn't interested in the next movie being like a monster movie where humans are at war against dinosaurs. He didn't think that was. I think he actually said, I don't think that's realistic, which I don't think he knows what movies he's making if he's thinking about what's realistic. But he said it wasn't like he didn't want it to be like a Godzilla thing where, you know, like dinosaurs are terrorizing people, kind of like what happens in the third act of Lost World, which some people have a problem with. I've always loved. I always thought it was a beautiful homage to the Godzilla and King Kong movies, but also is wholly its own thing and is a really fun and new thing to do with the T-Rex after Jurassic Park. Because I mean, what the fuck do you do with a T-Rex after Jurassic Park? You perfected it. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
You got to unleash it on Manhattan. But so what he was more interested in is like, oh, if you're driving on a back road and you might, you know, almost run into a stegosaurus, or if you're camping and a hungry, you know, velociraptor shows up, like those are the things he was interested in. And then in the movie, like we only see them, and it's a clip of that weird news article that they do at the start to kind of recap everything that happened, which I very lazy and annoying that they chose to do that. And then we get the locusts, and then we're off and running, and it's the friggin' locusts that bring all the characters together.
Yeah.
And I was messaging friends while I was watching this movie because it has been a film we've been discussing in me and a group of my friends for a while about how all of us accept the fact that at one point we are going to watch Jurassic World Dominion, but none of us want to. It's kind of this looming thing. Was like eventually we're going to have to cave and we're going to need to know what this movie is. And I was the first one to take the hit, and I was messaging them. I was like, literally every time that Sam Neill or Jeff Goldblum or Laura Dern are not on screen, this movie is terrible. And then they come on and I'm like, we're back, baby. And then they go away and I'm like, I don't care about any of you. I hope you all die.
There was even times though when they were on screen, like when she said something about he slid into my DMs, and I was like, no, Ellie Sattler would not. No, what are we doing?
Look, I appreciate that because it's always been the thing that you know, Alan Grant is a Luddite, and you know, he was confused by fucking helicopter seatbelts for crying out loud. Like, of course, sliding into DMs is going to baffle the man. I did like, it shouldn't work, but I did kind of like how when they're in the tunnels, they turned him into Indiana Jones for a bit. Like, he's got the torch and he's worried about losing his hat and all this funny stuff that they did there. It was like, okay, I guess he's a paleontologist, archaeologist. They're both ologists. And really, like, I did think one thing they did do right, and there's spoilers, of course, but I think one thing they did do right is they kind of fixed one of my biggest disappointments of the original three is that in Jurassic Park 3, we find out that Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler have broken up, and she's married someone else and had kids, and that marrying someone else is the Deus Ex Machina that saves him at the end because that guy is connected with the army or the CIA or some shit, and boats. That's like the only part of me was like, what the hell? But yeah, they've divorced. Ellie Sattler and her husband Mark or Michael or something boring have divorced, and that opens the gates for the inevitable reconciliation of their love at the end of this film, where they finally kiss and get back together. And we're like, thank God.
As it should be.
I think another thing this film does right is it finally seems to figure out what the hell to do with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's characters. First time that they felt right for me in the three movies. And perhaps that is because the weight of them carrying the movies is gone. Yeah. You have the original three there. And that's quite fun. The goddamn clone. I appreciated that they retconned their own horrific mistake there. Like, no, she's not a clone. No, shut up. There's no clone. No one talk about the clone. That never happened. There was never a clone. And like everyone's like, good. And like, she just impregnated herself. Like, what the fuck are you? What are you talking about? It's like, and also she was secretly one of the people responsible for making Jurassic Park. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? What did you do?
Oh,
leave it alone.
They try to fix too many problems and then create more problems.
I know. Good things. The little moment where they're like looking at the plans, and I think it's the pilot kind of looks over at Ian Malcolm, and he's kind of like, hey, and then she looks down and he realizes his shirt is like unbuttoned, a la Ian Malcolm in the back of the truck in the first movie. He's like, oh, and he buttons it up like, oh, that's inappropriate. It's like, oh, okay, that's a nice nod. There are things in this movie that they did quite well at kind of honoring the first one in ways that, you know, Jurassic World with the Jake Johnson character talking about all the merch and how great it was. I was like, that's not what we want. We don't
No.
want you talking about merch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that some things are better. It's I really, 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 really don't like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It's one of the most disappointing films that I've ever sat through.
Mhm.
Jurassic World, I've always thought was fine. I think this
Yeah.
might weirdly be the best of the 3 Jurassic World movies. That ain't necessarily high praise. And I think the reason it's the best of 3 is because it just brings back the 3 main characters from the first movie. Is like,
Yeah.
let's let these guys do half the movie, and that half of the movie kind wins the movie for me. I do have questions about the locusts. The doctor, is it Dr. Wu?
Mhm. Yeah.
When he's like, I can genetically engineer it and wipe them out in 1 generation. I'm like, that's great. And then he releases one locust that's been genetically altered to 1 swarm of locusts, and then that 1 swarm of locusts flies around. I'm like, so once that 1 swarm dies off, that's that genetic problem gone.
Mhm.
And then all the other locusts all around the world don't interact with those locusts and they're fine. So are you going to go to every farm in America? Is that your plan? Like, what are we doing?
He's going on a very slow tour.
Yeah. So my biggest frustration with this movie is that repeatedly I got bored
Yeah,
in a
I was
goddamn
bored.
dinosaur movie. Like, this is a
Mhm.
Jurassic World movie. Like, there was no peril. I didn't believe any of the characters apart from the bad guy were going to get eaten.
Mhm.
I never thought the little girl was ever going to die. I never
No.
thought any of the old or new characters were going to die. Not even the pilot. I was like, they can't kill her. She's the only one who can fly the helicopter out of here.
Yeah.
We've established that. She's got to live. Unless suddenly, like, Ian Malcolm is like, oh, I've been taking helicopter lessons. I can fly us right away. You know, unless there was kind of a weird thing they popped out there,
Mhm.
she had to live, which meant you
Yeah.
had all of, like, so many characters. You had 8 characters running around, and not a single one of them was going to die. So it was
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
where's the stress? Also, I made, I think there should be like a segment on the shows now where we just, like, anytime we cover a movie, if there's a part in our research we come across that is a worry, we just be like, have a segment. We're like, don't Google it. But the big bad in this movie is Dogson. And as soon as the name Dogson comes up, I'm sure most Jurassic Park fans were like, what? Why don't I know that name? And,
Mhm.
the name from Jurassic Park 1, where Wayne Knight goes, Dogson, we got
Yes.
Dogson here. See,
Yes.
nobody cares. And it's Dogson that gives him the Barbasol, the shaving cream that pops open and stores the embryos.
Mhm.
Well, that character is back all these years later as the CEO of Biosyn, and he's like the main big bad. But he looks different. And then I looked him up. It's because he's played by a different actor. And I was like, the original actor must have died. Oh, damn it. And then I Googled the original actor, and he didn't die. He's alive. And there's a reason he's not in movies anymore. So this has been, don't Google it. just leave it alone. Just don't look it up. If you want to know why Dogson's a different actor, just don't look it up. It'll make you sad. And that brings us to the last film on the list that I could have. I'm sure I've missed a couple, but the last film on the list of sequels that released this year is a film that was little seen and probably talked about less. I think people probably missed this one quite a bit. Probably because it's a sequel to a film that came out a very long time ago, and I don't think anyone cared anymore, called Top Gun Maverick.
Never heard of it.
Anyone saw it or cared about it or talked about it even once? What is there to say about Top Gun Maverick, and why? I'm just going to say why you say it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it right on the list as a definite. So you tell me what you think about Top Gun Maverick.
What's been said about Top Gun Maverick that we haven't already said about Top Gun Maverick?
It's probably going to get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. The closer it gets, the more it looks like that's actually going to happen.
As it should.
As long as Tom Cruise does the campaigning, because he doesn't like doing that. He doesn't like, which is why he apart from Magnolia, he's never been nominated for stuff or born on the 4th of July, but like in the later part of his career, I guess once everyone found out he's a Scientologist, he doesn't really go out and do any kind of press that is not directly related to the movie he's promoting. But I think for this one he might, because I think the writing's on the wall that, like, if he can really market this and use that Tom Cruise charm, this will get nominated as one of the 10 best feature films of the year. And there is a universe where if they do this right, Top Gun Maverick could win. Now it is crazy unlikely. I'm not delusional. I know it is the least likely thing that it wins. I think at this point it is a borderline give and it gets nominated, which is insane.
Yeah.
Again, like, looking back at the year, at the start of this year, if you had told me I would give a shit about Top Gun Maverick, if you had told me I would like Top Gun Maverick more than the Scream movie that was coming out this year, I would have been absolutely certain you're insane. And if you had have told me that at the end of the year, it would have been high probability that it gets nominated for Best Picture and that I would be championing that cause. My God, what a crazy year 2022 was. This movie is it's a juggernaut. It's an absolute phenomenon. Like, it has not gone away. It has not stopped being cool. It's not like one of those blockbusters where everyone's like, this is fucking great. And then a few months later, people are like, yeah, man, that was a fun time we have at Top Gun Maverick, but like, we've moved on with our lives. No, like, every week that I go near a movie cinema, I'm like, I wish Top Gun Maverick was still in cinemas. I wish it was still the number one movie in the world. I wish it was still playing 13 times a day on 100 different screens. Like, you should just have a cinema. One screen in every cinema should be dedicated to just playing Top Gun Maverick on a loop. Like, it is so friggin' good. It's just so fun. It's just exactly what we wanted movies to be this year. I think it was like the ultimate return to like cinema. This is cinema. This is movies. Like, this is pure cinema.
This was not even on my radar until you were like, we have to talk about it. You have to see it. And
honestly, like, it was barely on mine. Like, I was not a Top Gun guy growing up. I didn't watch Top Gun for the first time until last year. Like, it wasn't a movie that I grew up with and loved. I knew the movie start to finish because it's so ingrained in pop culture. I knew all the quotes. I knew all the characters. I knew, almost beat for beat what happened. When I saw it, I was like, oh my God, like, this is what I thought it was. I know this movie. But then kind of the word got around. This movie was like really, really fun, like stupid fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I walked out of that cinema, like, it was all I cared about. Like, between leaving the cinema and getting to the car, I had got into the group chat for the show and put like 15 messages that are like, we are talking about this. It is whatever was on the slate, cancel it. The next movie we're doing is Top Gun Maverick. And you all and then I didn't think anyone else in the chat had seen it. And then Cable was like, oh yeah, I saw that a while ago. Like, I was like,
why are you talking about this?
What sort of while ago? How have you done anything else with your life? Like, yeah, what an absolute pinnacle of what cinema is in this year. And especially after talking about a lot of things we talked about, where sequels that didn't know what to do with their characters years on, sequels that tried to ignore the fact that their characters got older, who didn't know what to do with their characters being older, sequels that tried really hard to cram in every special effect they could and fail at it, sequels that tried to reinvent the wheel and fail at it, sequels that tried to not reinvent the wheel and stick to what they did before and fail at it. Top Gun Maverick, like, it is interesting now in a post release date of Avatar: Way of Water, where everyone's like, oh my God, like the mastery of this, the filmmaking, the master, like, Top Gun Maverick made a new camera, a new type of camera. The team built a new camera to film what they did, and when they did it, you feel like you're in the plane with them.
Because you were.
When James Cameron did it, you feel like you're watching a cartoon.
Yeah,
now that's not saying that what James Cameron did is not amazing, but if you want to go apples to apples about a film that came out in 22 that reinvented the way that you can film something and put the audience in it, Top Gun Maverick didn't need CG, it didn't need HFR, it didn't need 20 years of development of creating new technology. The only reason that it took this long to get this movie is because Tom Cruise was like, I don't know if we really need to do a sequel. And everyone was like, well, we're not doing a sequel without Tom Cruise. And then finally they were like, hey, I think this story could really work. And they're like, okay, now we have to figure out how to film the fucking thing because we're not doing this CGI. We're doing this real.
Exactly.
And it's just breathtaking what they did. It's exciting to talk about, let alone watch. It's such a great film. So it is obviously definitely going on our long list, which means, first of all, that's the last film that I've got on the list.
So something else has got to go.
So something has to come off the long list, and then we got to cut the long list to 5. So I'm going to read you the long list one last time. We have Clerks 3, Prey, Confess Fletch, Avatar: Way of Water, Sonic 2, Halloween Ends, Scream 5, and Hocus Pocus 2 are the films that are not currently set to definitely in our top sequels of 2022. So of those films that I have said, is there anything that you're instantly like, hit the bricks?
Sonic 2?
Sonic 2. Now, look, I'm not wholly inclined to disagree with you. However, it is quite high on Cable's list. It is quite high on his list of sequels for the year. So I wonder if in this first round of cuts, is it fair to the silent third member of the team? Is there something else that we can cut? Or is there something else, perhaps an easier way? Is there something else that we can set to definite to perhaps make the decision easier for ourselves? Is there, so if Clerks 3, Prey, Confess Fletch, Avatar Way of Water, Sonic 2, Halloween Ends, Scream 5, Hocus Pocus 2, is there anything there that you're like, that has to be on the list? I'm not going to let that go.
I feel like surely Scream has to be on our definite list.
Do you though? Do you?
We do not have to love it, but everyone loves a trip back to Woodsboro. Do they not?
Everyone. Oh, look, I've just been reminded by scrolling a little higher up on the list. There was a film that I actually have forgotten to put on the list because of some fuck around with the release date.
Mm-hmm.
So a film that I forgot that in Australia came out on New Year's Day this year was Ghostbusters Afterlife. We got a new Ghostbusters movie this year. I saw this movie in 2021, so I didn't put it on my initial list because I was lucky enough to go to some preview screenings, and it was meant to come out that year, but then it got delayed and COVID reared its head. So Australia technically didn't get it to 2022, so it is eligible to go on the list. Did you see Ghostbusters Afterlife?
No, and you're going to be so mad. I've never even seen the original Ghostbusters.
Okay, we can't have this conversation. So, look, I didn't have it on any of my lists because I did see it the year before, so I didn't feel right about putting it on the list. So I'm not going to throw it in the mix then if it's not a big thing for you, but it was worth saying. It did come out this year. It did rank high on Cable's list, but I'm sorry, Cable. It just, there's so many movies that came out.
It's last year.
So you feel like Scream 5 has to be definite?
I think so. Did we all see it like the day it came out, or at least around?
No, it took me a week or two. But look, that's splitting hairs. The point is the film came out and we watched it. All right. I feel like then we're going to have to start to trade a little because we've only got 2 slots left. We've got 3 definites. So we only have 2 slots left that are definitely going in. So if you want to put in Scream 5, that means we only have 1 slot left.
Oh wow.
For the films, which means that of Hocus Pocus 2, Halloween Ends, Sonic 2, Avatar Way of Water, Confess Fletch, Prey, and Clerks 3, only one of those movies is getting in. Now, I will concede Scream 5. I appreciate it's certainly a film that we talked about a lot this year on the pod. It's certainly a film that has been in film culture and in our conscience a bit. It's something that ranked. It ranked on Cable's list. And it sounds like it ranked on yours. It may even have ranked on mine. Okay, so I will concede Scream 5 being on the list.
Okay.
And then I guess it's about cutting what's left to find out what I have a pretty clear idea of what I think should be the 5th film on the list.
Okay.
So I think we can cut Sonic 2.
Okay. I think
it's good, but I think in the grand scheme of the list we're building, I think let's say it's a top, it's a top 10. But I think if we're going to have a top 10 that we then reduce to a top 5, I think I can cut. Oh, man, this gets tricky because I'm looking at Cable's list and we don't have a lot of crossover, and I really want him to feel like his voice was a part of this. But man, like it's tricky. I think I'm gonna say let's cut Clerks 3.
Well, you did say it was a bit of a downer.
Yeah, I guess perhaps it's more emotional for me in the grand scheme of what it is rather than the actual film. So that means that our long list of 10 films is Prey, Confess Fletch, Avatar Way of Water, Sonic 2, Jackass Forever, Halloween Ends, Scream 5, Hocus Pocus 2, Glass Onion and Knives Out, Mystery, and Top Gun Maverick. Our definites currently are Top Gun Maverick, Glass Onion, Scream 5, Jackass Forever. How are we feeling about that?
I feel like I know what you want number 5 to be, but I could be wrong.
I'm honestly in 2 minds about it at the moment, but I think I know which way I want to go.
Halloween Ends?
Halloween Ends, I think, should be on the list of the top 5 series for the year. It has occupied so much of our brains and our time. I mean, the reason that we went back through all the Halloween sequels is because this movie was coming out this year. It has occupied a huge chunk of our time on the podcast. It's a movie that, like, no matter what we think about it, we have not stopped talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout the year. And I think when we look back on 2022, one of the films we will remember, for reasons good or bad, as being a big and defining film is Halloween Ends. So
Yeah.
I think I will give you Scream 5, but I think I want Halloween Ends on the list as well.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. Whether
All
you
right.
love it or you hate it, we've talked about it a lot.
So then I think we have to order the top 5 then, and we're
Okay.
done. Let's start at the bottom.
Okay.
Let's start at number 5. I think the 5th is between Scream 5 and Halloween Ends. I think one of those two is the 5th of the year.
Well, I know where my 5th falls, but yours might be different.
That's fine. Look, we can make Halloween Ends number 5. That's
Okay.
fine. I can live with that. But that means I can't have Scream 5 any higher than 4.
Oh, no, that's okay.
So I
can
think
live
that's
with that.
before.
Mhm.
I think I would make the case that based on the amount of people in the pod who have actually seen it, but also maybe it's a recency bias. What do you want next?
So what if we got a list?
Jackass Forever, Glass Onion, or Top Gun Maverick? What do you want to be the third of the top 5 for the year?
Well, I haven't seen Jackass, but I would probably say Glass Onion.
Glass Onion. Okay, I didn't think you were going to say it, but I can live with that. Absolutely.
Because I feel like just you've talked Jackass up to me where I kind of want to go watch it.
I think history is going to show us it was a really great film.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Top Gun Maverick has to be 2 and Jackass Forever. I can't even finish the sentence. Jackass Forever is number 2, and Top Gun Maverick, which I think should come as a surprise to no human being on earth, is the best sequel that was released in 2022.
Maybe even ever.
Already the best sequel that was released in 2023. I mean, it's better than whatever's coming out next year. It's going to be so hard to beat in years. It's going to take an absolute curveball of something that we just don't see coming that knocks us out of the park. For me to consider any sequel in the next 5 years to be better,
yeah, me too,
than Top Gun Maverick. And it doesn't matter who you throw at me. Again, this is a year we had Michael Myers, we had Ghostface, we had Leatherface, we had so many big franchises that are really important to me that I rewatch monthly half the time. I don't think a month goes by that I'm not watching either a Halloween movie or a Scream movie or Friday the 13th, but I'm not watching a slasher movie. We got a Ghostbusters movie this year that didn't even make our long list in the end because it was so confusing about when it came out. We got a Jurassic Park movie, which we both love, the Jurassic Park franchise. There were so many other sequels that I was friggin' ready for and excited for that I was sure were going to be my number one.
Oh yeah, me too.
Bullet, and then goddamn airplane movie with Tom Cruise. Fuck, would have guessed it. So now, to bring things home, I want to know how close this is to you. What are your top 5 sequels? Let's go round robin.
All right.
We'll go you. We'll go you. Then I will say Cables, and then hopefully my phone is charged enough that I can check my list, because I really I ummed and ahed and I swapped my list around so much in the last couple of days as I knew I was going to have to commit this to audio. I was like, you better figure it out, man.
Yeah, you better have it right.
This is forever. Once you put it on the pod, this is it. I really
can't take it back.
All right. Okay. So what is your 5th film for the year, Michelle?
All right. So my number 5 was Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
Okay. All right. So that's pretty good. They made a pretty decent appearance. So we got to number 3 on our list. Great. Cable's 5th film for the year was Pearl.
Okay.
Which I feel like we gave a pretty decent amount of time to, and I think we gave it a pretty good argument. I think if he was here, I probably wouldn't really have been able to let it get on the final list. So I think that's okay. My 5th favorite sequel of the year was Clerks 3, which I talked about all the reasons why. I'm pretty happy that it got a bit of airtime here and we got it on that long list. I understand why it's not on the final pod list. What was your 4th?
So number 4 was Avatar: The Way of Water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ranking high there. Cable's number 4 was Ghostbusters Afterlife. No surprise there, Cable being the huge Ghostbusters fan that he is. It's a shame he wasn't here to shed more love on that franchise. I know we didn't really cover it, but like I said, it flew by me because I saw it last year, so I didn't even realize it was a 2022 film in Australia. My number 4 was Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery. So there's a good crossover there for you and I so far. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is Hocus Pocus 2.
Okay, great. This is good. This list is a pretty decent representation of us so far. This is good. Cable's number 3 was Prey, which great. Maybe that would have made its way. Maybe Cable could have argued onto the list. I don't know. I'll take whatever blowback there is. If he's really angry that it only made it to the top 10 and not the top 5. My third favorite was Halloween Ends. Which really, that was one of the ones that like I played around with the most on the list. Is like, where do I put it? What is there a film that's going to be higher than it? Glass Onion, I watched quite recently, and I had it over it for a bit, but then I worried that was recency bias, and
Yeah.
I really had to sit down and think. And I think it I'm quite happy with it where it is. 2. What have you got as 2?
Scream 2022, Scream 5, whatever you want.
Wow, that was really high on your list. Okay, well I am impressed that it got settled in at 4. Then that's literally splitting the difference.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Cable's number 2 was Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which I feel a bit bad that didn't fare better. Overall, I appreciate all the reasons he's put it that high. It is really good. Perhaps if we redid our rankings, in 6 months, it might get on the list. Who knows? It's pretty damn good. Mine was Jackass Forever. It from the moment I saw it, it was really high in my estimation, and it never really got knocked down at all. And then I think it should come as no surprise, and I don't think we need to round robin it. That for all 3 of us, our number 1 is Top Gun Maverick.
Oh no, it's Jurassic World Dominion.
I should have seen that coming.
The Locust movie.
I mean, I don't think that from the second I saw Top Gun Maverick, nothing else. It's nothing against any other movie. It's just I think Top Gun Maverick is absolutely unbeatable for being the best film of the year. Did you have is Top Gun Maverick your favorite film overall of the year? Do you have a non-sequel?
I have a non-sequel that I enjoyed, but it's not from this year, but it's one I watched this year.
Oh, okay, that's a good wrinkle. What is your favorite non-sequel that you watched this year for the first time?
Holiday.
That's beautiful. I don't know what I thought you were going to be maybe like, I saw The Godfather for the first time this year. Have you ever seen Citizen Kane? I've never seen Citizen Kane. No, Holiday is
the Emma Roberts Christmas movie.
The Cable will be pleased. Cable will be very happy that this came in. Top Gun Maverick was also my favorite movie of the year, overall, sequel or not. The only thing that really came close, a film that came out this year called Barbarian, which it's like it's neck and neck. And
wow,
if Top Gun Maverick hadn't have come out this year, Barbarian would have been my favorite movie of the year, hands down.
Wow.
There's not a third place for me was Nope, which is a film I absolutely love, but I think Barbarian definitely outdoes it for me this year. But nothing comes close to Maverick and Rooster. No. Like it's just,
and Hangman
is the film of the year, and Hangman, all of them.
Which is crazy because as 3 giant Scream fans, ignoring all the Halloween Ends and everything, like especially me, I never thought I would be talking about a freaking Top Gun movie, and we're still talking about it. We bring it up in almost every podcast. It's almost brought up in every group chat. Yeah. There's still matching tattoos to come. Now it's on record.
That's in our looking forward to 2023. Wow, this is epic. This turned into a bigger episode than I thought of, but I'm really glad that it did, because it was a great opportunity to go back and touch on a lot of films we didn't get a chance to cover episode by episode throughout the year, and a great opportunity for us to kind of reconcile in our own minds what sequels were this year.
And so many sequels, that had giant gaps in between movies, which is even more crazy.
Big year for the comeback sequel. Massive year for the comeback
even
sequel.
Hocus Pocus 2 was what, 29 years?
Something ridiculous. Yeah. Like records were being shattered all over the place. And then the ones that wound up on our list, for the most part, are like sequels to franchises that have been around a while. I think like Glass Onion is the only one that is a recent franchise. We've got Top Gun Maverick, Halloween Ends, Scream 5, and Jackass Forever. We're all stretching back at least in the 90s, if not earlier, to get to the start of these series. So it's, I don't know, maybe there's a lesson in that. Maybe like look back at the films that, left a little opening, and then take the time to write them properly.
I think nostalgia always helps as well. Like nostalgia always gets me. Like I love a good 90s throwback, or just like a good throwback in general.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but then that logic kind of falls apart with Top Gun Maverick, because Top Gun meant nothing to all of us.
No, that's true.
Like Cable was probably the one who cared about Top Gun the most, and even he was like, "Oh yeah, I like it," but it's not like, it wasn't like one of my go-tos. It's not like in my top 10 kind of thing. Yeah, but all of us are like Maverick forever.
I just think it was so good. Like, you've got Avatar where you say it's visually good, but Maverick was visually good, but also the story was good.
I mean, I never felt like I was in Pandora when I was watching Avatar. I felt like I was in that frigging plane every time that
Mhm.
they put me in the cockpit.
Oh yeah, I drove
Um,
home like I was a fighter pilot. Like we've talked about
Me
this.
too. Yeah.
And like I wanted to go see it again. And like I was there the day it came out on Blu-ray, like bought it straight away. Like that hasn't
Yeah,
happened with anything else. Oh,
I
maybe
went
three.
to went to like a shop and bought. I didn't order online. I went and like bought it out my
Mm-hmm.
hands the day it came out, and I
Yep.
have never done that with any other movie.
I think I did for Scream 5, but
And
probably didn't come home straight away and watch it.
I already owned it on
Digital.
digital. Like I bought a digital copy the day that it came out on digital
Mhm.
and watched it the day it came out on digital, and then I went and bought the Blu-ray and then watched it. Like I don't know, something about this movie just it hits all the right nerve endings. It's
Mhm. And it's
like
not just the beach football scene.
it's not. It's really not. But that is our sequel suck official top 5 of 2022. This is really fun.
Mhm.
I think that moving forward, this is going to be how we wrap up every year. I hope, or at least I'm going to strongly argue this is how we wrap up every year.
I think so.
And this is sort of, I guess, the part A. The part B, we're going to come out very early in 2023. We're going to take a little break now, and then we'll very early in 2023 we'll come out with our sort of our year in review and looking forward at what's to come with Cable back on Mike. And then one of our first films we're going to be looking at is going to be a remake. I'll give you a little teaser. It's going to be a remake. And we are going to be lucky enough to sit down and have a really good chat with the director of that film when we talk about it in early 2023. So stay tuned. Check out all the Instagrams at Sequel Suck. We'll try and keep it updated there. If we remember, we're all kind of on Mai Tai time now because it's holidays. And we'll be posting as much as we can. You can find me at Gus Brown on Instagram. I might post about something. I might not. I might just be sleepy. Where can we find you on Instagram or wherever, whatever socials?
At Aussie Hello Witch on Instagram, where I'm posting about Sequel Suck all the time. Probably more
All
than
the
the
time.
Sequel Suck Instagram, let's be honest.
Yeah. You are the champion of our social media world. You're the one who's like, here it is. And that's about it. That's it. I can't think of anything else I need to say. That's it.
It'll all be linked
Done.
below.
It'll all be linked everywhere. And now we're officially on holidays. That's great. We can now I take my rest. Great. Thank you everyone for listening. If this is your first episode, go back and check out. We've got some great earlier episodes. Top Gun Maverick. Like you heard, we love it. Check it out. Or go and deep dive into some of the less spoken about ones with our Halloween series and everything else. And come back and check it out in the brand new year. And remember, baby, not all sequels suck. Now cue swing by Everclear.